We'll see.
What's up, Wolfpack? It's your boy, the Wolf of Rose Street, RoseStreetJournal.com. Green Feed You Fantasy Wolves here with your usual Monday 4 p.m. stream. Unlike usual, today we're not going to start with any topics. We are just going to hit the ground running, dive right into some drafts. We'll definitely be chatting about some of the best podcasts we've been recently listening to on the best ball topic, overall strategy, lessons, all that good stuff. We do have pick 11. I believe we're going to try to sneak 2 drafts in here, so maybe we'll get one at the bottom. Ideally, we'll get one at the top. Who knows? For the next one, so we can kind of compare our strategies to our bids. Our builds differ from where we're sitting at the draft, but at least we'll get at one start from the bottom of the draft, moving in there. As you can probably see, I am not in my usual spot. It's probably part of why we're not doing our typical show. I don't have the usual equipment, visiting the in-laws and everything, having a great weekend over here. But my man Mo, you ready to draft? How are we doing?
Yeah, I am. I haven't, I think like you, I haven't drafted in a couple of days. I know you're just in a state where Underdog is not legal, which is a different story, but it's just that dead part of the off season. There's not really any significant buzz. I mean, you kind of just see people pulling at straws, trying to find news stories, and you get some stuff here and there, but nothing really actionable or stuff that should legitimately influence ADP. So I've kind of slowed down with my drafting. There's not a whole lot to react to. I know some people on Twitter that I've been seeing have been like building out the Jaleel McLaughlin, Alvin Kamara comps. Like that's one topic that I've been seeing flying around on Twitter. So people are really just finding things to talk about these days. So we'll see what the next couple of weeks are like for the world of drafts and the drafters like us who are drafting all summer long. But it's definitely the slow part of the summer.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll get the training camps. We are on the clock here at pick 11, so we'll dive into it.
I'm good to go Puka here.
Yeah, I like going Puka there too. I think that's a great pick there. This will be a great show too, guys, since we don't have a set structure, set topic. If you have any types of questions, ask anything. Of course, any likes, shares, retweets, any of that good stuff really does help us out, especially early on. It does get us out to more people. We have a good streak of over 200 people joining us. I do like Gibbs. I also like Harrison, though, for the correlation as well for that Week 17. And that's kind of probably the first topic point. I'd like to go Harrison, but I'm down for whatever you think, too.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. I think get that correlation in there. And
that's
going
to be a really popular.
Yeah.
I was from there. Say that's going to be real popular at the 1-2 turn is the Harrison Puka.
Yeah, it's definitely popular. I will say this, though, with Puka at that ADP of 9.5, I think it's actually flipped recently, right? We talked about A.J. Brown going ahead of Puka. That's actually flipped. Of course, we moved the market. It was all us. But I think that is a worthwhile change for sure. I think it's deserved change. I do think A.J. Brown, we were both in agreement he should be going ahead of Puka for a number of reasons, whether it's Cooper Kupp reemerging and whether he threatens for a 1A, 1B situation. It's not the clear 1-2 we saw. That could totally be a possibility. There's just so many more factors. We know what A.J. Brown is, 1,400 double-digit touchdowns every single year he's been with the Eagles and now in Kellen Moore's offense. So I do believe that should be happening. Now, what about Puka versus Garrett Wilson? Like, had we had the choice of those two, what are your thoughts there?
It's hard for me to say because you want to bet on a talent like Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Puka Nacua is very, very talented as well, but you want to bet on Garrett Wilson's been so productive without anything in terms of an offensive environment and quarterback play. And you want to take a bet on him improving, but it's hard to deny the efficiency of Puka. I think you've probably seen that chart that's going around on Twitter. It's like guys to average their splits in yards per route run in zone versus man coverage. And Puka is right up there with like the Tyreek, not up there with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's in the tier of his own, but you always see in those graphs like the top right corner is the truly elite guys, and Puka Nacua is right up there with some of the upper tier receivers. So it's hard to deny Puka just being an absolutely dominant guy. You can make the case for Cooper Kupp being potentially injured. Playing a role in Puka's efficiency and just overall productiveness. And there's been some pretty smart people. Mark Garcia-Hilo of Fantasy Points just talking about how he's taking a massive stand on Cooper Kupp just because he believes that he was injured last year. And we've seen that because you see Kupp go into the second round now in not a lot of these drafts, but it's not uncommon to see him at the 2-3 turn now. So it's hard to deny the talent of Puka, but they both have their drawbacks. I'm typically going Puka just because I can get Garrett Wilson at the 1-2 turn, and I don't really ever see Puka there. So I'm typically going Puka ahead just because we've discussed about it, wanting to get our fair share and not have too aggressive of a stand on any of these round one guys. So I'm taking Puka just to be in line with ADP. But are you taking a stand one way or the other?
No, and we talked about this once earlier this offseason when the receiver show, where I'm trying not to take too many clear, like I'm only going to go this guy. My mistake last year, and Liam made a point here, like Puka, MHJ, very reminiscent of the CD ARSB stack last year. Great point there, Liam. Absolutely, last year as a common 1-2 turn was that Lions. It's crazy that I remember all the Week 17 matchups of last year too. One of them was Lions versus Cowboys, and a lot of people stacked that game up with those two guys and couldn't ask for a better home run. We would be in great shape if Puka and Marv pan out like what CD and ARSB did last year. Maybe Puka does become that kind of CD guy. Maybe he is just, I am now the Cooper Kupp guy in this offense, and Cooper Kupp is my caddy. It could happen, and I'd certainly like going that route. But the reason I also like this comment is part of what I did last year was I said, Garrett Wilson's my guy. Him and Rodgers, next Devontae Adams. And I ended up fading CeeDee Lamb. Not entirely. I had some CeeDee Lamb, but far more. It should have been more even. It should have been more split. And you didn't get anywhere in the playoffs. I advanced, 35 to 40 of 120 teams. I was at right around 30% advance rate. It was great. But when you didn't have, and that was without CeeDee Lamb too, you didn't have him, you didn't get to the finals. And I just can't have that type of situation again. I know we're about to be on the clock here. Should our guy make it to us, Cooper Kupp, the guy we've been talking about, I think we got to keep with this game and we stick with it. What do you think?
I think that's pretty easy. He's sliding a couple of picks past ADP as well. So, and we're basically teeing off on a Ram stack here. Yep, I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will put too. I got to read it actually myself. I know Liam just recently either CJ Publisher. It's coming up soon. I know it's going to be our pick, but he has a lessons learned from my 25 best ball draft so far, which is going to be awesome. I like Allen here. I like Kelsey. I like Pickens to just kind of keep that receiver flexibility. I'm open to any of those three. So whichever one you prefer the most.
Let's go with an elite onesie and do, well, obviously it'll be an elite onesie. Let's do Kelsey.
All righty, let's do it. I like it too. And I tweeted out this weekend, fingers crossed, we get that luck. This was actually a little bit deeper into the draft, but I got it where Mahomes fell all the way to me in round 5. Typically, we don't see that. I imagine a lot of times these days somebody at the top of the board might go Hollywood Brown and then Pat Mahomes. There's no way. I can't imagine he'll fall all the way here. When I was in the middle of round, I had a Bijan pick, so pick 7. I got Kelsey at that pick 42, and then Mahomes wrapped around to me. And then Worthy wrapped around to me in the next round. I thought it was a glorious stack. And I'm all in on the Chiefs. Just I want to leave every draft with the Chiefs pass catcher. I've heard some other smart guys say that too. Ben Gretsch, Sean Siegel, they're stealing signals. It's true, though. I really do think I'd be pretty surprised if they aren't one of the top 3 offenses in the league, if not back to – it was just a couple of years ago we saw Mahomes was 50 touchdowns, pushing for Peyton Manning records type of situations. And maybe now this is – it's tough to say it's his best cast with no Tyreek Hill, of course, but between the depth, if Worthy pans out, if Marquise Brown pans out, a few ifs there, yes, but Rashee Rice we already know is a great fit there too. This could be the most well-spread cast he has. And I'm excited. All the OTAs talk is they're going vertical more and more than ever before, that this is like the real emphasis. And that doesn't mean the offense will 100% become this aerial bomb show, although it was a few years ago. The fact that they're re-emphasizing it, though, in that time where you're trying to get things going and get your legs under you, I love to hear it. So, yes, I love getting Kelsey here, getting a piece of that Chiefs offense. I imagine this is where we're going to lose Mahomes because we see Hollywood Brown go. I bet that's going to be the Chiefs stack right there. But, man, that was so nice to get that stack. And every draft I do want to get some Chiefs. We can certainly look. Hey, he does not go there. Fingers crossed. Maybe he makes his way to us. I'd be absolutely thrilled. Either way, though, Worthy will likely be there. But yeah, I think Liam, though, bringing up that point too, and I'm excited to check out your article on what your takeaways were from your first 25 best ball drafts. I encourage everyone else to check out that stuff at rotostreetjournal.com. Good to see Thaddeus. What's going on? Get your guys, as he always reminds us on our shows, get your mix-ins. But great to see you. Glad to see the comments are already in there. Absolutely, get those comments, questions in. We would love to be tackling them for sure. Looks like we also got a Texan stack down here: Collins, Tank Dell. So you got to imagine that guy's hoping Stroud makes it to him. What are your thoughts on the Nico Collins? Are you in that? I'm guessing he's playing the try to get unique by pushing up a later round 2 guy to the beginning of round 2. Maybe, but either, or maybe just loves Nico and knows he would never be there the next round. What's your thoughts though? It seems a little early, but I respect it.
So I think we talked about it a little bit, thinking that it's fair to do that, just because of the flatness of the tiers of receivers in round 2. And I was listening to the JJ Zacharyason's podcast, Becoming a Best Ball Bro, and he
Great.
had on Justin Herzig. And if Justin Herzig's talking best ball, you listen. He has made the best ball final for every single BBM since it ever has existed. So he was talking about how it's warranted to be doing that, and it makes sense given like the lack of clear separation in the second round. And he kind of brought up to emphasize that lack of separation. Like if you're projecting these guys and you bump up a guy's target share, and there goes Mahomes, unfortunately. But if you bump up a guy's target share like 0.5%, like their projection shoots up from the bottom of the second round, like all the way to the top. So it's such a massive cluster in terms of the tier. But he was mentioning that he wants to kind of do those kinds of things more so when the ADP is more shaken out in August and we have an idea of what teams will truly be unique, because at this point in time, only 20% of Best Ball Mania teams have been drafted. So there's a whole lot of ADP to be solidified. Like there'll be more casual drafters coming in. And I think it's pretty fair to be waiting on those kinds of things. And here we are about to be on the clock. I will pull up the queue. I don't have anyone in particular in mind. I know you like Calvin Ridley a lot. I don't mind grabbing James Cook to start looking at running back, and I think Worthy is also a fine pick just to be making bets on the Chiefs offense. Is there anyone specific here that you have in mind? And a onesie Anthony Richardson isn't the worst idea either.
No, it's not. I like going Ridley. You know my thoughts on him. I'm a fan. I know we've done him a few times, so if you really didn't want to, I have a feeling Worthy would make it back to us though, and I wouldn't mind going Ridley, Worthy, and then taking a break at receiver for quite some time from there.
That's fine with me.
And maybe the idea of naked Richardson's interesting, so we could consider that. I had a feeling the other guy was going to go Stroud, so I didn't really want to go Richardson there. I like going Worthy myself. I'm not a diehard Richardson, but we also don't have much of him, and he's easy to stack late. So if you wanted to start that type of build, we could. I personally go Worthy. Now we're set at receiver for a long time.
Yeah, let's just take our
detours.
I think it's not a bad idea to just keep betting on the Chiefs offense and picking up Worthy there. And yeah, now this sets us up to be able to take the stabs that we like at running back in the middle rounds. And we know how that the ADP is shaking out in terms of the availability of like just diverse archetypes of running backs in the mid to late rounds of these drafts. But speaking of ADP, this is kind of shifting from best ball and kind of what we've been talking about here a little bit. I mean, the show doesn't have a ton of structure today, but have you been taking a look at the redraft ADP? That is something that we've kind of briefly messaged back and forth about, but I tweeted it the other day. The redraft ADP is absolutely mind melting. It's the two really bad ones that have been kind of like, they've been making circles on Best Ball Twitter is Alvin. Like this is all in reference to ESPN's like very early ADP. I mean, it is just the end of June, so there's not that many drafts. It's probably there's no comment on the sample size, but you can just assume it's not a ton of drafts. But you see Alvin Kamara in the third round and Nick Chubb RB28. And to me, like Nick Chubb is RB 43, I think, in best ball drafts. And obviously Kamara is there in the 7th round in these drafts. So is there anything like, I don't know how closely you've been paying attention to this, but what do you think about like just the vast difference in between best ball versus redraft ADP? Because to me, it's going to be pretty brutal when August comes around and I'm trying to formulate some draft strategies for my redraft league drafts.
It's going to be wild. And the more I've been engaging on Reddit a bit more lately too, just trying to build the audience over there. And so I'm getting a lot more redraft questions. So I have had to study some of this ADP. It is significantly different. And I think that you have to consider a lot of things. Does your league start 3 receivers in a flex or just 2 receivers in a flex? Because I'm still in this like wide receiver avalanche. I would never do what we just did in a redraft league. 5 receivers and a tight end, no running backs at all. To me, redraft is much more. The more I've played redraft, the much more I've gone into the idea of like, I do kind of want to build out my starting lineup. If that means a Josh Allen early, a tight end, elite tight end, because you can find those wide receiver edges, especially again when you only start 2 and maybe a flex. I don't need to hammer the position nearly as much in here. It is wild. I don't know. Alvin Kamara going round 3 is just absolutely insane. Like, I saw Rashad White's like a late second rounder, those type of situations. It's just like, I still think, we're going to be trending to a world where 0 running back is looked upon as the best strategy, regardless of whether you're playing redraft or best ball, because of all the reasons it makes sense here. The less fragile approach, the injuries happen far more at running back. You're far more likely to get those monster running backs off the waiver wire, off the late rounds in redraft and in here. So I am still going to mostly prioritize wide receivers sooner, but I do think those hero running back approaches become that much more prevalent. I don't want to be taking Rashad White in round 2 by any means. So, getting a Christian McCaffrey, 2 great receivers, maybe an elite tight end, and filling out a starting lineup is probably how I'm going to attack those more. It is way different, though. I haven't really done much mock drafting or a ton of studying besides just trying to answer questions from redraft perspectives. It's way different. You can, again, see 5 receivers and a tight end in our first 6 picks. That's nothing I would ever do in redraft. No way, because you are costing yourself those points each and every week when you have to make those decisions. The best part of best ball is we have these 5 receivers. We draft them early because that's where the firepower is. That's where the 25, 30-point upside is in these early rounds. It fades so much faster. You were shouting out the Best Ball Bro podcast, a great one. And maybe that's part of what we can talk about today is like, what are some of our favorite resources? I love the legendary Sickos one. Anything Pat Crane's in, he's just fun to listen to. He's obviously won the tournament. He's a smart guy, but they also make it interesting. Him, Overzet, and the ship chasing crew there, Sham Sermon, they're great. But he also does a weekly podcast with Eric. Is it like BMF4? I actually should learn how to say his name because I love his takes. He's awesome to listen to. They had one this week called Best Ball Pinball. I think this draft we're doing right here is an interesting example of that, where you really can't get away. It's like table stakes to get on there. We're going to make our pick in a sec, so I'll kind of get to what they were summarizing. But they had this idea of like, what is best ball going to come down to this year? And I want to kind of break into that and dive in quite a bit. So I don't think we have to go Kyler Murray quite yet. If you want to just pull up like everybody in the queue, I know running backs is what we're likely going to go, but just in case there's a receiver that's crazy falling or something of that nature.
No one's really falling. We're kind of into that tier where you start to see it falling off. I think we can push Kyler around the turn. The guy in between us has
Stroud.
Yeah, he's got Stroud. So I don't mind going Najee, Brooks. I don't super love Aaron Jones, but I don't mind it either.
I prefer Najee. Yeah, let's go Najee here. It correlates week 17 with our Chiefs that we're building out. Without a running back so far, too, I really like the safety of Najee. Like waiting on Brooks to get there would probably, as much as I love Brooks, late season stretch run, we need somebody that's going to produce. I think Kyler's the no-brainer here.
Yeah, I do too.
Stack up Marvin Harrison, give us some rushing quarterback upside, top 5 QB available.
And get him a half round past ADP.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of turned out to if I've seen a lot of drafts now. If like the McBride guy passes up on him, and then the Marvin Harrison drafter passes up, he suddenly is all the way back to like where Dak and Burrow are going, which is probably ultimately fair. I guess he's probably in that same tier as those guys. But yeah, you can really get a nice value on Kyler Murray. But if you have Marvin Harrison, you don't have the QB, and you pass on him, I just don't know what you're doing.
That's one thing that I think will also be really interesting in between redraft and best ball perspective, just because these guys who only have one stacking option or a couple, and you even see it with guys who have several early round options that are stackable, like CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud falls a lot, but specifically with these guys who only have one option in the early rounds, the go-to guy for that is Dak. But they just slide all the time in these drafts. Yeah, Burrow slides.
You got to watch where the T. Higgins drafter is if you draft Chase and whatnot. But yeah, I've seen Burrow go. I saw the T guy pass on him in round 9. The Burrow guy then pass on him again, and he made it all the way back to round 10. He's like, holy shit! Like, what is happening here? The way these guys fall. So yeah, it's wild, and that's actually part of what their conversation was, is that idea of like getting tricky with these pushes. Do you push for that value of a Dak falling, a Burrow falling further? You could do it with like, if the Drake London draft or in our draft decides let's push a few rounds on, especially if you have Pitts and London, no one's going to take Kirk Cousins. You could get him like 2 rounds. I've seen him go like 180.
Exactly.
Aaron Rodgers I've seen go. I just took Aaron Rodgers one draft at 215, and I didn't have any weapons. I was like, what am I doing this for? But it was like 215 Aaron Rodgers, and I had a 3 quarterback build. It was a late build. Like I hadn't dipped into quarterback in round 12. And screw it. I know he's unstacked, and that's useless most of the time, but he's going to give me a couple 20-something point weeks in literally the last round, round 18. But no, so what they were talking about, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. And you should definitely listen to it. I know you said you had it kind of in the background. Definitely listen in depth. This one they talked about, they call it best ball pinball. Essentially, it was like to get onto the table and just be hitting the ball back and forth is your early round receivers. That's the table stakes. That's you get in. That's the only way you can really survive. There's no way around it. But at the same time, to like win pinball, every now and again you have to like hit that. I don't know how familiar you are with pinball, but there's like a little thing in the corner where you try to like go for that big shot that like makes it go crazy. And they were kind of analogizing that to essentially your detours. When do you decide? You need those 4 receivers through round 7, those 5 receivers through round 9. When do you decide to take a detour, though? Is it for elite quarterback? Is it for elite QB? Is it you just keep loading up and you ultimately don't take your detours at all? What is the right path? And there's no real clear right answer, but they were essentially saying whoever decides to take those detours at the right time, whether it was to take Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts in round 4, whether it was to take Isaiah Pacheco the round 4 or 5 turn and dip into those running backs a little earlier than some people might have been. It's going to come down to, yes, you got your receiver firepower, but what choices in those 2 to 4 detours you're kind of affording those first 8 rounds, where did you decide to pivot? And I think it's a smart way to think of it because it really makes sense. The data on the receivers is so strong for all 4 years. You need to have receiver firepower to win this thing, and now you need it earlier than ever. But it's also everyone's going to be kind of doing that. So what do you do that's a little bit different early on? Is probably going to decide who wins this thing. So I thought it was a great conversation. They went into some options. They kind of dove in. They had a few more takeaways that we'll talk about too, in terms of like, well, if you don't take any detours and you do just build receivers, which is kind of what we did, what do you do? And I think we're doing quite solidly what they said it could also be the ultimate just blueprint too. So we'll dive into that. I know we're going to make our pick, but I'd love to kind of know your thoughts on that idea. Again,
Yeah.
So receivers, the winner's going to pick the right detours type of mindset.
So I've got a couple guys queued up here. Thinking running back just based on already having elite onesies and kind of setting up for or semi-elite with Kyler and setting up for a Matthew Stafford pick perhaps later on. So we've got a couple of guys queued up. Is there anyone who jumps off the board here? Trey Benson fits in with the Cardinals. So
that's the one I like. Yeah, Cardinals late season upside. I love it. I think that's great. And then I know you like B-Rob. Now, I would say I love the idea of getting Stafford late. I think it works out well for this team. Probably makes the most sense. Daniels is falling here. And I am in love with Daniels. I'm intrigued by Tajay Spears, though. It does kind of correlate with our team.
He's stackable late. And that would pretty much we'd basically be done. Maybe make a stab at someone really, really late at quarterback. But
I love both these guys. So I'm intrigued by either one you choose. I like them both.
Let's try a late Daniel stack.
Yeah, because you can still get Sinot, McCaffrey if we wanted Dotson.
Yeah. There's options.
Yeah.
And you don't like we talked about it before. You don't have to stack Daniels super heavily either.
No.
So
not at all. It's way different than a Kirk Cousins, where if he's going off, your weapons are coming with him. Daniels might not take anyone with him because of that. And that's actually one of the detours they mentioned is if you, let's say you do kind of stick to the playbook, 5 receivers, maybe 2 running backs, and you haven't gotten your quarterback, Daniels is one of the most appetizing guys. They kind of cited as like Daniels, Brock Bowers as like the 2 guys that go in the round 9, 10-ish range that could just be like, no, you didn't need an elite quarterback or elite quarterback because Daniels ran for 800 yards and threw for 3,800. And he was just as good as everybody that cost you a round 4 pick. Or you didn't need an elite tight end. You didn't need to go Mark Andrews round 5 because Brock Bowers, the most historic rookie tight end prospect of all time, was just as good as advertised, even if he was on the shitty Raiders. And so that was kind of their take in terms of like, if you do just follow the book and you haven't taken really any set detours, who are the guys in those like round 9 to 10 range that boom, like you follow the playbook and you still get that round 4 to 5 upside at quarterback and tight end. They cited Bowers and Daniels as those potential guys. So yeah, I had you like giving you a chance to respond though to that idea of like receivers taking your detours, what matters most. Like, I don't know. What do you think of that kind of conversation? I thought it was a great one.
It is. I think it's like exactly what the best ball landscape is shaping up to be this year. That's completely. I think that's basically what it's going to come down to. I think the people who are drafting the best teams and the people who are going to have the most success are going to be the people who properly allocate their draft capital to the receiver position. So I agree. That is kind of just the baseline. Like, are you ensuring that your team at least has a chance to succeed by drafting allocating the proper amount of capital to receivers? So I think that's 100% correct. That's just where you need to be in terms of success in these drafts. And then, yeah, like we've talked about it, like the you don't need to have like a specific draft strategy in the sense that I need to have receiver in round 1, 2, and 3. I need to have receiver in rounds 1, 2, and 4 and grab someone else in round 3. It's about when and where you take the detours. And to me, it's seeming like the best spot that it's going to be is figuring out when, where, and who you hammer tight end, because we've talked about both of us wanting to grab elite tight ends in these drafts, and how like this year it seems like there is a much larger depth of players who are able to provide you with that historical elite tight end upside. Like historically, the elite tight end has been defined as rounds 1 through 5, and those guys drafted in rounds 1 through 5 are the guys who are giving you spike weeks. But it's seeming like now with George Kittle going in the 7th, and he did go in the 6th round of this draft, but he goes in the 7th round in a lot of drafts. With guys like that going later, like the accessibility to those spike weeks is a lot later in drafts. So it's really seeming like how it's going to come down to how you decide when and where you want to attack tight end. But I still think regardless, like you want to be grabbing someone in those first 7 rounds, and it's really just going to come down to, I think, just being right. The elite quarterback it's a lot less appealing this year. You've got Josh Allen, who I still think is going to be a phenomenal fantasy asset, but it's very obvious the hit that his receiving core has taken in the last year. You've got Jalen Hurts. I don't necessarily buy into it, but the reliance on the tush push and those 1-2 yard touchdowns in terms of the percentage of his fantasy production that accounts for, it's pretty apparent. And if they go away from that to feed the ball to Saquon, I'm not sold that that's what's going to happen. I mean, like the tush push is the most successful play in NFL history, so I'm not entirely sold on that being the outcome. But if they go away from that, that's a big hit to Hurts's fantasy value. So I really think the path is through the tight end. Are you kind of on the same page there, or are you thinking it's quarterback or elite running back?
Yeah, I don't know what it will end up honestly being. I'm intrigued by the idea of the hero RB builds, and you get those guys, and you see what happens with one anchor early. I like the idea of it being tight end. I think the tight end position could be huge. That's why I spent a ton of time just writing about it. This last weekend, I wrote a huge article about it. I saw you bump that man up. You know my thoughts and feelings. I do love Blake Corum there too, because it correlates with our team as well.
Yeah,
but I do think we'll see who falls to us there, because I do think the security of Edwards is nice. Given that we have Benson, that might be a little more late bloomer. Given that Corum would be more contingent. But yeah, I wrote a ton, and Corum goes anyway.
I'm gonna go Edwards here.
Yeah, we go Edwards, and honestly, I'd love if Eckler made it back to us after, because I know Daniel's like the whole argument against Eckler is that he's probably not going to catch a ton of passes as a mobile quarterback, and it doesn't typically work out. But I mean, he actually threw. Somebody tweeted. I gotta remember who it was, but Daniels actually threw the running back at like the 4th highest clip last year among college quarterbacks. He was plenty fine with dump offs. So somebody, because everyone kept talking about that's the narrative, and then someone tweeted, "Well, look at these stats. Like he targeted running backs, 25% of the time." Or whatever it was. So I'll have to try to refine what that was. But either way, that would be a nice fit in here. Another guy that veteran kind of balances out this when you wait on running backs, you want somebody that probably there he goes. Damn,
I
I would have liked it.
I'm liking either Charbonnet or Dotson here.
I probably prefer getting our guy stacked. I'm not a huge Charbonnet guy. I don't know why. It's just not my thing. I don't know.
There, I mean,
So
it's
I'm not getting a ton of Charbonnet exposure. But
with the Seattle rushing attack. I mean, it's obviously a new regime, but it's hard to. He was working into a basically 50-50 split last year, and we know what he can provide as a pass catcher. And you know, the lack of consistent production and the more of the boom bust home run type mentality, not necessarily mentality, but I mean, just like that's just what he does out of Kenneth Walker. I mean, you never really know what is going to happen in this backfield, and I would not be shocked if he maintains that 50-50 split. So I don't know. I'm getting to Charbonnet in some of these drafts where I'm waiting to grab running back, like here where we didn't grab running back until round 8. So I like Charbonnet on those teams, and I also am just grabbing a fair share of just of Seattle stacks in general. So I'm getting to Charbonnet for that reason as well. But I can understand why you wouldn't want to be on him necessarily. But for this team, it makes sense to be going Dotson there.
Yeah, got to get at least one weapon stacked up there. I know Dotson's not your favorite. I would have loved to get Eckler, Corum. That would have been a fine spot to go running back. Running back had Zeke made it to us, some save volume. I'm cool with getting Edwards where we got him. I hoped Eckler would make it. Sadly, did not. Thaddeus reminding us to get our guys, as always, and mentioning Hollywood and Richardson must be some of his boys. We did ultimately pass on Richardson, but I love how our quarterback room panned out. If you're still with us, Thaddeus, let us know your thoughts on the Kyler Daniels. It obviously required a little bit less of an investment here. Now that we have like 6 receivers, I think this is probably going to be a 7 receiver build. I don't know that we had 5 in our first 6 picks. Dotson also another pretty girthy bet here in terms of receiver capital spent. So I don't know that we're going to need more than one more receiver this entire draft. Doesn't mean it can't happen next pick or within the next 2, but we'll see how it all pans out. I don't think we're going to need more than 2 quarterbacks with Kyler and Daniels with that capital spent. I don't know. Richardson's an interesting one. I'd like to talk about him, I guess, a little bit. I do think just while we're talking about him real quick, Daniels, one way to stack him that Liam's pointing out is elite tight end with Ertz in the last round. I get it. I do. It's so gross. It makes you want to throw up. Like, is Ertz really going to be a thing in the year 2024? Is this guy still even alive? And he is. He's alive, and he's well, and he's on the Commanders, which blows my mind. But we've seen him have success with Kingsbury before. He brings this guy in. Everybody loves Ben Sinnott, the next, Sam Laporta. And Ertz is probably going to see 70, 80 targets. The one thing with drafting Ertz right now, though, that worries me just a little bit is like he is coming off like a bad injury. What if he is just dust? Like at a certain point, you do just become pure dust and you get cut. Like there is a world where Ertz doesn't make the team. I actually don't know what they paid him. Maybe they paid him enough that's like, no, we know, we feel good. I would be interested. I don't know if you know that, Liam, how much Ertz got paid. It makes complete sense, though. That's why I'm not fully in on Sinnott. I think Ertz is probably going to be more annoying than we think. We know he has had success in the scheme. I think it's a good way to stack up Daniels. But I don't know. I understand all the logic, and I just still can't get myself to click the name of Zach Ertz. And I know it's been a worthwhile click in 4 of the last 5 years, though. I don't know. Now that we have Daniels, are you any interested in Ertz with our last round stab? It makes sense with a Kelsey build.
I don't know. Not really. Like,
yeah.
What are you going to get out of Ertz at the end of the day? Like, I understand that the draft capital is really pretty much zero with Ertz, but I understood the argument when, especially, or not necessarily the argument for Hurts, but more the argument against Sinnott. When his ADP, it was creeping into the 140s. It was definitely past 150. Like it was the high 140s. That was complete nonsense. And now it's drifting back down into the 170s. So I think it's more reasonable and like palatable in terms of his price. So I'm like just given in the past, given the prices, I was really not stacking Daniels with a tight end. I was more so just kind of, and I was grabbing a lot of McLaurin earlier this offseason. I still am at a fair amount. I just like had to tone down my exposure because it was getting a little bit out of hand. But it's like we said, it's not necessarily a guy you have to stack, but now that Sinat's price has come down, I'm fine grabbing Sinat instead of Ertz because Ertz just doesn't do anything for me. Like what the one thing they bring up on ship chasing a lot is like, what do you get when you win? Like maybe you'll get like 10, 15 points a couple weeks, hopefully. Like, but I mean, we saw him go down with like a stint on IR and then just not even have a spot on the team when he came back. Like it was so bad that he had to like request to be released. Like he missed a couple weeks and now he's just like off the team. So we can keep talking about it, but is there anyone you've got on your list here?
Oh man, I do like Mooney. Stafford I like Vidal, honestly. I think we need some stats coming back here. I don't want him to slip past us.
We got Gus. I don't want two pieces.
Oh, that's true. We do have Gus. Yeah. Man, maybe Mooney and just we'll figure out receiver from there.
Yeah,
I think we're done at receiver after that, but
yeah,
it's
and then
he's grab the only a running back. I see like decent value. Yeah, we should have probably put up some points there. But that gives us the week 17 correlation, the Falcons versus the Commanders. So I like that.
Yeah, that's why I didn't mind taking it. Yeah.
Maybe in that sense we do go Algier if he makes it back to us here. Oh,
he does not make it back to us.
Shit.
I don't really like Musgrave here. I don't want to do Vidal with
not with both of them.
I don't mind Ray Davis.
Yeah, I don't mind Henry either. I don't mind Ray Davis or Hunter Henry since we have
let's do Hunter Henry.
We could get a little Patriots. Now we feel good about our tight ends.
Yeah.
So we don't probably need Sinat at this point. And I would say at this point too, if Stafford right now would be too much of an investment. We already have two quarterbacks. But because we have both Kupp and Puka, it wouldn't shock me if Stafford again made it around. And then it's like, okay, now we're getting him 20 plus picks. At that point now it's like, okay, we stack week 17. Daniels doesn't pan out. We have a little buffer there, which again, you got to draft like you won. So I'm not necessarily draft that, but I could see Stafford having a few. This offense was nasty. There was a stat I heard, crazy stat about like the games that Puka or the games that Kyron and Stafford played together, especially in the second half of the years, they were number 2 or number 1 potentially in scoring, EPA, like some crazy stats. And that was without Kupp even being healthy. So imagine a world where Kupp actually is healthy. Stafford, Puka's still what he was. Like, it's just a monster. There's a world where, like, Stafford, he just a couple of years ago had, 40-something touchdowns, 38 to 42, something like that. Like, there's a world where he does throw a crazy amount of touchdowns. So I know we're hyping up a guy that's on our team, but we had too much capital invested already. This isn't a team I expected to be 3 QBs. Should he make it around to us, it makes sense with the type of investment we've made in this squad already. Liam was giving you some the argument for Ertz. So I guess he did get $3 million. That is definitely not nothing.
Before we get on back to Ertz, I did want to make a comment on Stafford. Like, I saw a tweet. I can't remember who it's from. Stafford is the second best fantasy quarterback of all time, behind Aaron Rodgers in supporting multiple top 24 receivers. He's done it 3 times in his career. He did it with, it was Golden Tate and Calvin Johnson. It was like a mix of Golden Tate, Calvin Johnson, and Marvin Jones, I believe, was the mix of receivers it was. Like, if you think Stafford, like, I understand it's a different phase in his career, like, but if he can support Golden Tate, like, in that capacity, like, it's Cooper Kupp we're talking about, and, like, obviously, like, Puka Nacua, but, like, the one you're betting on a bounce back from is Kupp. So, I'm willing to take that bet on that's more just not necessarily Stafford, but I'm willing to take the bet on Kupp and fine having this big investment in the offense. But moving back to Zach Ertz and Ben Sinnott, obviously, like, there's an outcome where Sinnott doesn't really do much this year, and like Liam mentioned, like, it was like, you don't know if McBride has that breakout if Ertz doesn't get hurt. Right. And at the end of the day, like, he does go down and we get the breakout. But yeah, there's an outcome that he just stays on top all year. Ertz is the top guy and we don't really see anything, but I'm more willing to, especially with his price being now more into the 170s. Like, we know how old is Zach Ertz at this point? 37? Like, not 37. He's probably like 35. But like, we know what we're getting out of Zach. He's 33. I was kind of off there. we know what we're getting out of him is the point that I'm trying to make. Like we're at this phase in his career. Like you're lucky if he puts up a handful of points a week. Like if he's cracking double digits, like that's a win for Zach Ertz. And I'd rather just take a dip into the unknown, especially with these, especially in these best ball drafts where you like, yes, the you can argue like it's probably a good argument that you'd rather be not taking zeros than you are taking these massive upside swings with a guy like Sinnott. But like you know what you're getting with Ertz is and I just don't want to take that kind of bet on a really old tight end who couldn't even find a role on the team after he got after he returned from injury. So it's just not a bet I'm super interested in taking.
Yeah. I do think it comes back to that question you posed, and it's a great one to always think about when you're trying to beat, however hundreds of thousands of people are looking at it, is what do you win when you're right? And Ertz, you might win even at his best. I'm trying to think like the last. I can probably pull up his stats here, but like even the last time that he was relevant. Even last year, he was like catching a lot of balls. So I might be more interested in, especially on DraftKings, where you have 20 roster spots and you get full PPR. I could see that actually panning out okay. But here it's just like, especially when we have Kelsey, if Ertz is hitting our lineup more than twice this year, we've lost because that means something really wrong with Kelsey and we're screwed. So I think that's a fair point too. Whereas if you are right with Sinnott, maybe McBride was a calling card to Cliff Kingsbury, and he wakes up and now he uses this young, exciting guy, something of that nature, right? I could see that potentially being a thing. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's all fair points. Like, I get why he's potentially a thing this year. It annoys me that he's a thing. He shouldn't be, but he definitely could be, which is annoying. And Liam, and we are on the clock. I think we got to go Stafford. I know it's not probably what this build needs. I think that does force it into a 7 because we're going to need 6 running backs. So I would even honestly unqueue McCaffrey as much as it works with our build. Yeah. I think we're going to have to. Yeah. So I would go Stafford there. I would unqueue McCaffrey.
Just tee off at running back.
We just got to tee off at running back and find one tight end. Oh, no, we already have Henry. So we don't even need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have how many more picks? Like, so
we're going to need to
light them up.
I like Khalil Herbert, just a bigger path to a role without an injury than Braylon Allen or Elijah Mitchell.
And just fingers crossed he gets traded to the Cowboys or Texans or something crazy. Yeah, I like it. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, we probably are just keying. What do we have, 3 more picks left?
Yeah.
No, 2 more. So we're just probably going running back to end this thing. So maybe we discuss like what some running backs are. I guess I do like this point from Liam. If DeMarcus falls to us in the next round,
DeMarcus is gone.
Oh, he's already gone? Okay.
Yeah.
He's going. Dude, I mean, you remember, I think I had him in 70% of the big board drafts. I still have him about 40% of these. I've been on the DeMarcus train real early. It's kind of nice to see him creeping up so much now because at this point probably won't get a ton of him, and my exposures will keep creeping down. He was my last round pick in every single draft, and I feel good about it. Like that's exactly what happened with Tank Dell. It's happening earlier now because Tank Dell, was a kind of preseason. We see it now. He goes up 3 rounds, and now I don't draft him anymore. But this is a second year in a row. Who knows if he'll hit like he certainly won't hit like Tank Dell did last year. We know that, but like it's kind of nice to know that I was in on a guy that crept up by 4 rounds before we even hit training camp. At this point, that always feels nice. So yeah, I love the Herbert call. But yeah, late stacking Stafford to Marcus when you could late stack him, Liam. It was awesome. You really can't anymore. I mean, this is the earliest I've seen him go, but he is starting to be in that like 170 to 180. Like I'm not seeing him fall past 180. Honestly, much more. So
yeah, 16th round is pretty standard for him now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You could basically scoop him up when and where you wanted earlier in these drafts, and that is very much no longer the case. So it's it's nice to see that a guy that you've been in on is coming up draft boards. I remember you put it back, or you put it out on Twitter talking about being interested in Stafford, and there was some Robinson. There was some pushback on it, just saying he's an older receiver. We like similar to Ertz. We know what we're getting out of him, especially not producing with either Mahomes or Lamar. And you can make the debate on Lamar. Like that was like when they were super run heavy Greg Roman offense. So obviously like not a ton of receivers outside of Mark Andrews producing in that era. Like Hollywood had some production here and there during that time. But I mean, in this situation, he thrived. He joined midway through the season and ended up on a pretty hot stretch. So I don't know, like especially given the draft capital, you have to invest in him, and for the most part, you're doing it on teams where you've already like the only way you're taking Demarcus Robinson is it's on a team where you've already taken massive swings at receiver with high upside young guys in the early rounds, or you're taking him on a Matt Stafford team. And I feel like in both of those contexts, it makes sense, like to provide hopefully just some steady flex caliber wide receiver 3 weeks to slot in there here and there. And he pairs well with high upside guys that you've already taken in the draft. And then on Stafford teams, like it obviously makes sense. So I don't know. I feel like maybe you can start to have the debate if we start to see him regularly going in this round 15 range. But earlier when he was available super late, I feel like it made sense as long as you were constructing your rosters like in a way that made sense as well.
Yeah, 100%. I tweeted out recently too that he was the wide receiver 20 as soon as he became the starter, and Kupp was the wide receiver 11. Puka was the wide receiver 4. Like they were all top 20 guys once they had that clear cut. These are our 3 receivers, and they were all playing 70, 80%. All right, let's check this out. It is hideous. Oh my God.
It is really bad.
Yeah, maybe estimate. This is where I do maybe plug my guy Dylan Labe.
Yeah.
It's bad.
It's pretty hideous.
I'd rather go Labe here, and then we'll figure out who we go. Because I actually do really like Labe. I know this is early.
It doesn't early.
I'm not into Tank Bigsby, who's now looking worse in OTAs than he was. I'm okay with estimate here. I'll toss out those Samaje Perine because he's the type of guy that like could get cut.
He might not be on the board. Oh yeah,
there he is. All right, we still got Samaje. No, he's not really getting drafted much. I mean, unless you really feel like we don't have to go running back, which I think we might have to.
I think we very much should go running back here.
Yeah, this was a room with like far more capital at running back than I expected.
This is like the round 20 on DraftKings that I'm used to seeing if I need running back.
Yeah,
like this is like there's been I haven't like been paying a super close attention to the running back investments from other teams, but who do you like here? I don't really like Mitchell a lot.
No, we need someone that's actually going to be there early. I like Perine the most myself. I could see him getting cut and then going to Houston or getting traded. Like the Cowboys pick him up, like
the clear pass catching back for the Cowboys or the Chargers.
Solid pass pressure. I mean, you look at the efficiency metrics are absurd these last 2 years on him. I'm not here as like I'm a Samaje Perine truther. By any means. Yeah, if you want, there we go. We'll pull up the draft. We can kind of review it in a sec. But he is like in terms of like missed tackles, force per touch, yards created, like all those advanced metrics. He's always up there, and he's a really solid pass protector. He's really solid, like just sturdy. We saw him. You're a Bengals fan. You saw him when like Mixon went down for a few games. He had like a 30-point freaking day, So at this stage of the draft, I think there is a world. If he stays with the Broncos, it means he is that clear-cut pass catcher that played right around half the snaps last year, had a few 10 to 12-point days, nothing crazy, but something that's in the lineup. In an ideal world, he gets cut or traded, and he lands with the Cowboys. He lands with the Texans. He lands in one of these kind of gold mine backfields that, he wouldn't be the number one, but a clear path to the second role. It could potentially work in as a pass-catching guy on some of these teams. We've seen that from Perine, and so I think he's a non-zero at this round that doesn't get drafted in these early drafts. So I like him. He's kind of I heard them shout him out on Sip Chasing one time. I was like, yeah, that's a guy I want to kind of start pumping in the last round in my own drafts. I do normally love Foreman. He didn't make it to us. He was a bit of perfect kind of early season, early
coming up
production. He didn't make it to us, though. We took Herbert, and I like the Herbert pick over Foreman myself. I usually see Foreman make it down that far, and not this time. Never Bigsby, as Thaddeus says. But I don't know. Yeah, is there anything running back here? Yeah, that's what we're aligned on for sure. Is never Bigsby. Yeah,
I completely fell for it last offseason. Like Doug Peterson, like we liked what we saw him as a rusher in Auburn at Auburn. We think he's got some skills as a pass catcher. We'd love to have him take some work off the plate of Travis Etienne. And then he goes out there and he has 4 targets that turn into 2 picks. And he just looks like the worst running back in the NFL. And like they're for like my argument was more that like he's just like his role was there to take the work off the plate of Etienne, and like you couldn't justify it. Like he was that bad. Like they just had to give all the work to Etienne because of how bad Bigsby was. And then there was a tweet today that I saw, like he is still looking awful in pass protection, or not pass protection, just as a receiver in general. So like, yes, never Bigsby is the correct answer there.
I felt too. And you know what? Like obviously it was wrong because he ended up being maybe the worst running back in the NFL. But the thought process was fine there. It's a good it's a top half offense. It was Etienne, a starter that typically does not profile as a every down horse. They didn't want him to be an every down horse. So it was looking like a handcuff with benefit situation. He actually looked okay in the preseason. He had a few like 6 carry, 55-yard touchdown days in the preseason. And it's like, okay, this guy has some juice. It's probably that another argument for another day is what to react to in the preseason. I guess not take Bigsby is for sure. But in general, yes, I fell for it. But that's the type of bet I'm willing to fall for every single time. And ideally, when you hit it, it works out big. Like guys that profile that way this year, Ray Davis, for example, touchdowns, handcuff with benefits, good offense, certainly a better offense, going right around that range. Tank Bigsby was. I'll go Ray Davis all the time. A little bit earlier, but like Ty Chandler goes in that range. Those kind of handcuff with benefits, Kendre Miller's. It's bets that I will definitely make. And then when the talent doesn't pan out to the point that they can't even be on the field, that sucks. But more often than not, like that's a home run swing that when you connect, it's huge. So you're going to take some complete strikeouts like Bigsby was, and you have to live with that, unfortunately. But when you get it right, there's not a much bigger edge in fantasy. When you can find those handcuff with benefits, or certainly the Kyron Williams, the guys that weren't even handcuffs, they were just starters on great offenses. That does not very much happen. But let's review the squad. I know you probably fire up another one. Are you cool to fire up one more? Or
Yeah, I got time.
All right, sweet. So maybe that you join one, we'll get in one.
I'll get us into another one, and we can talk about this team. In the meantime, is like I'll let you start off here first. Is there anything that you did not particularly like? Anything that you ended up being super happy with? Any just big thoughts on this draft other than I think it ended up all right, but I'll let you take the first crack at it.
Yeah, I really like the squad. I do. I would say we did what the table stakes. Getting your wide receiver firepower, I think, is always crucial. And boy, do we get it! 5 of our first 6 picks, players I all really feel great about. I know Calvin Ridley's a little bit of a discourse and thing. I heard Ray Q on the recent Underdog one. He's on Calvin Ridley, though. Great to hear. There's a great video I watched. It's the kind of the whole argument I've made. I'm just not a great video editor that I loved. And they talked about how misused he was with the Jaguars.
Very much so.
With him is that he was great against man. He was great against zone. He was terrible against the press, but he never got moved around to avoid press or to get advantageous matchups. And all they talked about is how they're going to use him like Jamar Chase. He's not Jamar Chase. I get that. I'm not comparing the two. But ultimately, more motion, more favorable matchups at the line of scrimmage, get him free. That's what the Falcons did with him, and he was a top 7 wide receiver. That's in the range of outcomes. He had massive days even in the worst possible role. So I'm a big fan of Ridley. I think this is great. My one qualm, though, is like the way running backs flew, which is not typically the case in this. I'm trying to think of like where we could have added some running back firepower. Maybe where we took Kelsey, but I love elite tight end. I was thinking like Etienne, Pacheco. That's too early for those guys. So if we were replacing Ridley or Worthy, like what running backs were there? Maybe Mixon instead of Worthy. I liked our bet on the Chiefs offense, though. Walker there could have been interesting because I do love Kenneth Walker. Rashad White, like maybe 5 receivers was overkill, and we just needed to go 4 out of those first 6 picks. But I do really like the firepower. It's a questionable running back room, but that's the whole point of zero running back is you're not going to feel great about it, and you're going to let those contingent bets unfold. So I really like it. And we're not in the next draft yet, right? Or is that already started?
Oh, it definitely has already started. Yeah.
Oh, shit. We'll pull that up.
Yeah. This is we'll have to talk about that team another day.
Yeah,
But
we can review them
we're
all.
so I guess I'll make a comment on Ridley here before we make our draft pick. That is the one thing that I am concerned about with Ridley in terms of my preference of Hopkins over Ridley is the fact that yes, I talked about it like I wrote an article for rotostreetjournal.com talking about Ridley versus Hopkins, and I'm gonna make our pick real quick. I think we're both good with AJ Brown here.
Yes. Yep.
I wrote about Ridley versus Hopkins, and I alluded to the fact that he was blatantly misused by the Jaguars. Ridley was, and he was used as strictly an outside vertical boundary X receiver, like that type of guy, and that's not where he has ever had success. And like you mentioned, he like in his success with the Falcons, he was used more of that flanker receiver, getting in motion in creative usage, running across the field and not just stuck on the boundary. So, and that is the role, the boundary vertical receiver is the role that DeAndre Hopkins very clearly plays. And I think that Will Levis's like willingness to get the ball downfield is what plays into my interest in Hopkins. And I'll continue after we make our pick here. Is there anyone that's jumping off the board to you?
I like Olave. I like Adams. I like Nico if he's there.
I don't mind going Nico here.
I don't have a ton of Taylor builds, which is I'm down with either Nico or Taylor, whichever one you'd kind of be more interested in. For the sake of adding running back firepower, we could, but I do like the Nico pick here.
Let's do something different than we did last time, and let's go running back because I also don't have a ton of Taylor. And the case for
schedule, dude. Oh my God, it's like if you get there and you have JT, it's a joke. Titans, then he gets the Giants, and I think Week 15 is great as well. Yeah, he's and no Zach Moss there now. I mean, every touch is going to go to him. So yeah, let's see what it's good to experiment, right? Like let's that's the whole point of this. Let's see what happens here with Taylor.
And my case for Saquon being a bad pick at ADP is much stronger in my opinion than the case for Taylor not being a great pick at ADP. And like you said, I don't have a ton of Taylor teams either. But going back to the Calvin Ridley thing, like he's definitely going to be in a role like the Jamar Chase role doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of like production to me. But yeah, he's going to be like moving around the formation. He's going to be in motion. He's going to be used in a much different way than he was in Jacksonville. So that's the one thing that scares me about being a Hopkins guy over a Ridley guy. So I may have to start grabbing Ridley here more and there, more here and there. But like you look at the numbers, it's not great. Last year, Hopkins versus Ridley, and Ridley really hasn't done much in a few years. So you can make the case either way. But with better usage, I'm interested. But also, like then you go back and think like, what are those like what's that kind of role going to be worth in a Will Levis offense? Like you can paint the picture in your head of like the chuck it like big play stuff with DeAndre Hopkins. You can paint that kind of picture pretty easily with Will Levis, but what kind of role is that other kind of receiver, like the not so vertical, like running across the field, not down the field.
Yeah, but
like
Ridley can get vertical though. Just because he's moving around, he's not going to get vertical on some of these routes.
He also showed to not be super effective in that kind of role last year.
Really, it was less. He was good on deep targets. I don't have that exact stat either, but like he converted a lot of his deep targets for sure. It was more so he just wasn't great on the line getting pressed. Like it's not just because he's on the line, he's only running deep routes. It's more so get him shake free and then let him run some deep routes. On non-press, and he could do some damage. I don't know. I think the big thing. I'm with you too. I think Hopkins is a great pick as well, and like it is tough to stomach Ridley and then be able to get Hopkins around later. Although now Hopkins is creeping up draft boards, so it's almost like an 8-pick gap rather than a 15-pick gap that it had been. But I think the main point is that how much bigger his pie is going to be overall, and that's what Liam commenting here. That's what I believe too with Callahan. A top. We don't know whether it was Callahan or Taylor, but there's also the case that like maybe Callahan was the one that wanted to pass more and Taylor was holding them back. But they were top 7 in all of Burrow's healthy seasons in pass rate. They were number 1 in terms of like first down pass rate. And this is definitely going to be a pass-happy offense. I know Burrow versus Levis. It's not the same. It's not even close to the same. But Levis has a cannon. I like what I saw from the kid. He is not afraid to chuck. That's going to result in some bad interceptions. I understand that. I think it's going to be, though, I love late Levis stacks. We didn't end up doing that last time because we had with 3 quarterbacks and we had monster value on Stafford. We had already gotten Daniels. That's probably somewhere we could have looked back at and been like, maybe Daniels was a luxury pick. I still think it's so much upside there. I like going Tank Dell here myself.
I don't like Pittman a lot.
I don't either. And I guess we do already have Taylor. So, like, maybe we go Pittman and then we build up Richardson and we just go all in on Shane Steichen Colts. Like, I get that. I hope Zay does make it back to us. I doubt he will. But then we get a little bit of a correlation there with Zay and Tank. But I'm big in Tank. And this gives us a shot at maybe Stroud on the way back. In round 6 or something of that nature. Pittman goes there. I'm not a big Pittman guy. I don't think that's how you play the Colts this year with Richardson.
I like him in redraft. I think he's going to be a good pick in redraft. He's going to provide pretty consistent volume.
Nice, steady, right.
Like 140 targets again, like check it off, like already check the box. Like it's going to be there for him. I think
they're throwing that much, though. I mean, the Richardson offense, we only saw a few games of. That was a lot of Minshew. That's a different team. I don't know. I don't think we can just bank on 140 targets right to the bank again. But, but I do love it. And Fatty's bringing up the part of you've mentioned Okonkwo. I'm warming up to Okonkwo a lot because I do like Levis. I just like the Titans passing game to rebound, certainly at the prices that we're getting them at. I believe in Callahan. At least it's a bet. It's a bet I believe in making, whether it pans out or not. I want to bet on a cannon arm guy. Pass after attack. They're putting the weapons around him. They made some investments in the line. I think it's a fun one. I'd like to ideally build up more of we'll see. We'll go back to it, maybe build one out. Damn, the tight ends fly. We're on the board here.
No elite tight end for us.
What about Jalen Hurts? I know we've already taken a couple detours, but we have A.J. Brown. I'm okay with either Pickens or Cooper as well, but
I would honestly prefer to do Pickens.
That's cool.
And then grab Richardson.
Yeah, there was a great take on Pickens, and then we can go. Yeah, I like the idea of maybe Richardson later, whatever that ends up being. Because anytime Josh Allen's there, and I take Jalen Hurts, I kind of quince. I don't like it. I don't like that. So, we pass on the stack. We'll see. But yeah, like Levis, we can do. Again, we don't have a single Titan yet, but you can do Spears, you can do Okonkwo, you can build those guys out, which I like. Pickens, one interesting point, and then we can ramble on whatever else we want to ramble on. No talk all offseason about Roman Wilson from any beat writer. Maybe that's the beat writers just not being great. I'm not a huge Mark Cavalier guy for The Athletic, but they didn't even mention him once. And it's like, Calvin Austin's looking like the number 2. That's not a Calvin Austin argument. That's a George Pickens might see 170 targets. And we've seen the splits without Deontay in the past. They're absolutely massive. And thanks about Hurts bounce back here. I mean, he didn't have a bad year. He was the quarterback 1 or 2 last year. Hurts was great. Like we're not against Hurts by any means. But no, I'm excited about Pickens. I know some people don't love his price here, but I can see that being a massive value. So I'm a big fan of Pickens. We also have the Stroud potential with Tank Dell there. We have the Richardson potential. I like looking in that range if we're going to go early quarterback with this team. We'd already taken a receiver detour with Taylor. So I'm with you. I'm kind of glad you went the other direction there. Look at how far they're falling, though, man.
I know you were exaggerating, but come on. You discount Michael Pittman for 140 targets and then say George Pickens for 170 in an Arthur Smith offense? Like
I know.
I know you're exaggerating, but I mean, like the range of outcomes with Pickens is so wild. Like you just think about it, and you're sitting there in January and you're looking at your best ball results, and you're like, yep, I went back to it. I took an Arthur Smith wide receiver in the 4th round again, and it was awful. And like, would you be shocked if that happens? Absolutely not. But no. We also saw what Pickens did with a significantly worse quarterback in Kenny Pickett in the games that he had. No Deontay Johnson, and I was so out on George Pickens last year because of the target earner in Deontay Johnson, and then just the lack of diverse usage for George Pickens. We talked about talked about Calvin Ridley being just stuck in this role where he's just running vertical routes. That was George Pickens' his first 2 seasons in the NFL. And there's some like discussions of him being used in more creative ways and not just being this go run a 9 fly route type of guy. And I mean, I believe it when I see it. But even if he has more creative usage, like we've continuously been burned by Arthur Smith wide receivers. The only guy to solidify himself as a legitimate guy is AJ Brown, but that was also that involved like one of the most efficient, like in terms of just touchdowns and just general efficiency. Right? I don't care what you say about Ryan Tannehill. Like he fell off hard, but he was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL during that big time stretch that he had with the Titans, where they were like the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I don't think you're going to see Russell Wilson be the most efficient quarterback, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. So I don't know. You can paint both pictures, and I think just my priors with Pickens it's going to make me hard. It's going to be harder for me to buy in this year, but we'll see. Everything that's gone on with Arthur Smith and what I know about George Pickens as a receiver, it's hard.
Yeah, I can't argue there. It's more so there's truly no one else to throw to. They're still going to throw the ball 500-ish times. Even if they're like achieving like 100 below average, they'll still have it 500 times, and I just don't see who it could be. It could be Pickens and Muth, no clear number 2. I like the running backs there, as Thaddeus is saying. I know it's our pick here. I'm not a Keenan Allen guy. I don't know. I don't have any of them, so maybe we make that pick here. But I just never feel great about it. We could go back to the well with Calvin Ridley and build out the Titan stack that we didn't end up building. I know it's 2 in a row.
Let's build the Titan stack that you were foreseeing even before we picked the Titans.
Exactly. We had already predicted it coming here.
I was ready to get locked and loaded on Kyle Pitts. You're lucky that didn't have. So that can be our next talking point. What I want to listen to you first. Where do you stand on Kyle Pitts as a perennial hater and I will never touch the guy? Where do you stand?
Yeah, AJ Brown bounce back here. I love that. I get every reason why this is the year to bet back in on him. Every year there's reason to justify it. And this one, there's actually really concrete reason to justify it. It's Kirk Cousins. He's got somebody after all the non-catchable balls, after, everything. It all makes sense. All the reasons to not like him. He wasn't healthy last year. I get it. I totally can understand why people would want to take that bet yet again. The 1,000 yards as a rookie, the freakish Calvin Johnson at tight end profile, all of it. Okay, sure. I don't know if are you that hurt that you can't force Jonnu off the field or Pruitt, or is that truly an Arthur Smith problem? Maybe it might have been. It truly could have been. But this is a couple play callers now. It's just, I don't know. I'm not fully convinced Pitts is him, that everybody is like fully willing to. And I guess the main reason I'm against him isn't necessarily like, I'll take a stab at a tight end in this range, but I'd rather just go with Kittle, who has spiked for 20 or more points in 6 of his last 20 games with Brock Purdy. Like, I'll go with the guy that I just know is doing it. If that happened, if Pitts spiked for 4 to 6 20-point games, which we know is probably going to happen with Kittle, which might be the pick right now. I don't know.
I'm going to put Stroud.
I do like Stroud, though. I'm down with stacking out Stroud or going Mixon and just kind of building out that. I'm cool with Stroud, though, if you want to.
I'm going to go Stroud.
Yeah. That's good with me.
Anything else on Pitts?
I don't know. Give me the bull case, because I'm not a Pitts guy. It's kind of like, it feels like a Boomer thing where it's just like, I'm not in. It's not my guy. But I haven't seen it. I've been out all but 1 year and it's never hurt me. Like I'll see it. Let me see it.
The pushback on the not being able to get Jonnu Smith and them off the field, like, that is, in my opinion, 100% Arthur Smith thing.
Yeah.
We have seen him drag along his favorite guys to every single offense that he has been in charge of operating since he was with the Titans. Like, Smith had his best seasons with the Titans when Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator there. So, and we've seen it this year in his move from Atlanta to Pittsburgh. He brings along Van Jefferson. He brings along Scotty Miller. He brings along Mecole Pruitt. Like, he gets the guys that I don't know what it is. Like he has a man crush on these guys. He just wants to be friends with them. He wants these guys to like him. Like he's indebted money to them. I don't know what it is, but he drags these guys along from organization to organization. And if you're on that list of Arthur Smith's go-to guys, like you're coming. Like even if you're not good for fantasy, like obviously Van Jefferson plays a role. He's a very good blocking wide receiver. He plays a role in an actual NFL offense. But if you're a guy we hate for fantasy, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to play a role in this Arthur Smith offense because he values certain traits in certain players, and so that's kind of the case for the fact that he was splitting time with other guys on the field. But I mean, I feel like if you don't see the talent in Kyle Pitts, you don't see the talent. I mean, like he plays the position in a different way than anyone, like in a way that very few tight ends play the position. I mean, like no one really gets downfield to the degree that Kyle Pitts gets downfield from the tight end slot. And like, I mean, maybe like now that Brock Bowers in the league, like he can do some of the similar things that Pitts can do. But I mean, like Kelsey, his thing is understanding defenses, attacking the soft spots and zones, and just getting himself open. Mark Andrews, some of the similar stuff, and they're both great yak guys, but no one can play the mix of tight end and wide receiver quite like Kyle Pitts can, in my opinion. Just his athletic profile and his combination of size and speed, like it's just not something that you see very often. And Arthur Smith understood that. Like he allowed Kyle Pitts to get downfield, and arguably he got him downfield too much to the point where he wasn't getting those easy underneath tight end targets that you see in a lot of players. But with Kirk Cousins, I know I tweeted about it today. Like there's new Kyle Pitts propaganda. Like it's like Kirk Cousins, his on target rate for deep targets. Like the tweet was from Ryan Heath about the catchable target percentage for deep targets, like 20 plus yards downfield. The wide receivers for Kirk Cousins had some of the highest rates of catchable target rates for 20 plus yards downfield of any wide receiver in the NFL. And Kyle Pitts was down there at the bottom of the list. It was like a 40% rate for Kyle Pitts, and it was like 60 to 70% for the receivers for Kirk Cousins. So I mean, it is like you convert on some of those big splash plays and you just give them a chance. Like it's a different story. And we're here on the clock. We've got our patented options at tight end, but also we can go tight end or running back here. What are you thinking?
I like Ingram correlates with Ridley there.
Sure.
I'm good with that. And then because one of these running backs will be back there for us.
Yeah.
I think Fergie might be already gone too. So,
no, Ferguson was there.
Oh, he's there too. Okay, so we could have potentially looked at Fergie in the next round, but I'm down with any of these: Montgomery, Stevenson, Najee, Warren, Moss, whoever makes it back to us. I'm good with. It all makes sense, and that's a great stat on Cousins, and that's the whole argument. And if he takes off, he could blow up and be going in round 3 next year. That's not going to happen with Kittle. So I get that's like, well, if you're passing on Pitts for Kittle, you're never going to see a leap from year. So maybe I will bump a little bit more Pitts in there. I don't know. Then the hand is going to flare up. There's always something with the dude. There's going to be a little bit of a soft tissue thing in camp, and you're going to be – I'm going to start laughing at you again. And then when he has 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns, then you can come back at me. But I don't know. It's always something with the guy. And I'm like my proven guys. I want my Kelsey, I want my Andrews, or I want my Kittle rather than my McBride or my Laporte. I just want the guys I've consistently seen do it. Maybe that's a fault in my game, a blind spot, but give me the production I know I'm going to get, and that I'd be happy with if this other guy got me.
We've got the patented get 200 carries out of Najee Harris and get an RB20 season. We've got hopefully the same thing out of Zamir White, pass catching out of Swift, maybe a bunch of touchdowns out of Zach Moss.
I know we did Harris last time. He's my favorite of the bunch, but I do like Moss a lot too. I'm not a big Swift or White guy.
I'm going to go Najee.
Yeah. We already have Steelers. We're building out that team a little bit. I really think Najee could be better than the RB20 as well too. I think he could have one thing.
I'm saying like you can bait. This is going to come back and bite me in the ass, but I'm saying like you can write in an RB2 finish for Najee Harris in 2024. Like that might come back and bite me, but that's basically how I'm thinking about it. Like I don't really know what we're getting. Like, I mean, you kind of know what you're getting in terms of upside. I mean, you've seen Najee Harris have high-end fantasy seasons before. It's going to come down to like, is this offense going to be able to give him the opportunities to score the touchdowns that you need to be successful in these best ball tournaments? But I mean, just based on volume alone and his historical performances in fantasy, like, I don't think I'm crazy to say just like write it in, like check it off. You're getting an RB2 season.
And if he was a low end RB1, I mean, this guy going around 3-4 last year in a better setup now this year, better line. You know, as much as Arthur Smith has his faults, his run game is A+ every single time. I'm huge in Najee. I have he's probably my 4th or 5th highest owned running back. If I don't have him, I usually get Warren. I want one of them in pretty much every draft. I'm in with him. I love Najee Harris there. I
talked about, so in my limited redraft like discussions, I was talking about how I think Najee Harris is a fine pick, like good floor, gonna see great volume and a quality rushing attack. And I'm like getting pushback from people like, did you see what happened to Bijan Robinson last year? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like that was this like 7th overall pick in drafts. This guy is going at 90.
Yeah, like, if you get what Bijan did at pick 90, you're going to be happy. Like Bijan wasn't great, but I'd be happy with what he did at pick 90.
what was Bijan in PPR leagues? He was like RB10 last year.
He was solid. Yeah, I'll check real quick.
I got it. I'll pull it up real quick. It wasn't like people were disappointed because like he was obviously not used to the degree that he was RB12. Yeah, so he was RB, like he wasn't used to the degree that he could have or should have been, and could have obviously had a better season without Arthur Smith. But like, you know, you had an RB12 season out of Najee Harris, like you're gonna be like, we're gonna have so many teams advancing. Like it's gonna be awesome.
9th in total opportunities, like 8th in PPR points. He was solid. If you got that at pick, but of course that was Bijan. Like we're not saying we're gonna expect Najee to do with his touches what Bijan did. No way. But Bijan wasn't crazy efficient. He was 12th in yards per carry, you know, like 15th in yards per touch. Bijan's great. I'm not trying to downplay Bijan. I love him in this year. I think it's a way better offense for him, all that. But like, if Najee gets similar work, I bet we could expect like 80% of what Bijan did last year. And pick 90, I'm okay with that for sure. So, I mean,
I don't have anyone in specifically queued up. I wouldn't mind grabbing my boy Rashid Shaheed. He's climbing up draft. Huh?
You love Shaheed.
Oh yeah, I was on him last year. He goes there anyways. There's no one I super love. I like Javonte. Another steady. I don't mind.
I'm not into Javonte. I actually don't hate Singletary. It gives us a little Colts correlation.
Spears for this Titan stuff you want to do?
I say go Singletary for the Colts correlation, and then we pick whatever of the Titans running backs is there for us the next. Because Pollard's still there, and I don't like Pollard, but if we get him, you know, another go around, then he's really past ADP. I don't know that him and Spears will be gone, and I think that would be nice. That will give us a pretty solid running back room, which was one of our downfalls of last draft. Which it was a fine running back room, but not the best of rooms. You and Thaddeus are on cloud 9 this draft. You guys are completely linked up. Shaheed is one of Thaddeus's boys as well. So hey, you guys have definitely had some pits. Shaheed.
We've been secretly emailing, talking about who we're gonna talk about every single week in terms of who our guys are for the draft.
I also do like Odunze more than Keenan Allen. I know we passed on Allen that's part of why I passed him. You can get Odunze around later, and I also feel better about Odunze. Honestly, just straight up in a vacuum, I'd rather have Odunze. Never mind, you can get him around later. On DraftKings, Odunze goes like 80. It's absolute madness.
You can do so much.
Tajay would be an interesting one here.
You can have so much fun on DraftKings, man. It's awesome. I don't know if you've been seeing the tweets that I was putting out about people. Oh, and Tajay goes right there. I don't mind going. I'll get back to that. I don't mind going either Javonte or we will need to dip back into wide receiver here. I don't mind Javonte here.
I can't see what we got, so
my bad.
Yeah, I like Njoku pass value here too. I don't know. That's kind of late for him, right?
All right,
Round
2 tight
10?
end. That's fine for
Yeah,
me.
it wraps up our tight end position.
And then start hammering. Yeah, you get a full round of ADP value there.
Yeah, the number one tight end last year from week 8 on. I think I tweeted out when I looked for McBride how he did without Ertz, and I was like, the best tight end was Njoku. Weird. I know a lot of that was without Watson, but hey, we saw it. Maybe it unlocked the door. Now we don't have to think about tight end the rest of the draft. Like it's not really correlated. It doesn't do much for us. So you like Javonte though? I can't get myself behind Javonte right now. It seems like
I
a
mean,
gross committee. What's your kind of take for him in the Broncos?
like we know that he was not at 100% last year. Like everything we know about these kinds of injuries, like it takes almost a full year for them to like be back. And like the committee is gross. And I like Julio McLaughlin too. And like you said, like this, or we talked about earlier, this is the point in the offseason where we're not getting a whole lot. And the path for Julio McLaughlin carving out a pass catching role is interesting, and that's why I think he's solid at cost. But like, is anyone other than Javonte gonna take the majority of the touches in this backfield? I don't really think so. Like, just in terms of like not necessarily an athletic profile, but just like size. Like Julio McLaughlin's small man. Like, is he gonna take away a bunch of the rushing work? Like, no. Like, who's really gonna be doing it? So it seems like it's just kind of taking advantage of the fact that there is some ambiguity. Like, I think that if there wasn't some steam for some of these other guys, we would be seeing Javonte go in that round 8 range, where we see like the Zamir Whites and the Najee Harrises go, just like the guys who we're thinking that are gonna take the majority of touches in their backfield. And I'm starting to feel more confident that Javonte Williams is going to be the guy who takes the touches in those backfield. And it's not going to be like bell cow touches, but it's a round 10 guy who I think is going to be the clear 1A in a backfield. And hopefully, like I've drafted, I think Julio McLaughlin's like top 3 in terms of my in my exposure. And I think that's okay to be like interested in both guys just because of the difference in ADP. Like McLaughlin's starting to come up, but you could get him in like the 170s before, and he was really, really cheap. And so it's probably better to start getting a little cooled on McLaughlin. But I mean, the most realistic outcome is Javonte takes the majority of the touches in this backfield, and you're getting him in round 10. Like, I think he's more talented than the other guys who we're thinking are going to get the majority of the touches in their backfield that go in this range. Like a Gus Edwards. I know you love Gus Edwards, but I think Javonte Williams is more talented than Gus Edwards. And like, so I don't know. I just think it's just basically betting on, if you knew Javonte Williams was going to be the guy who takes the majority of touches in Denver's backfield, he would not be a 10th round talent or a 10th round like draft capital type of guy. So, and I really think that is the most likely outcome at that point. But like I said, like with the massive difference in ADP, not so much anymore though. You can still be grabbing shares of Julio McLaughlin because he's super cheap and still could provide value in a pass catching role.
Yeah, I mean, I know Sean Payton's backfield has been a gold mine for backs, largely because of the passing to running backs. It's been amazing. There's a stat out there about how he is, I think, 7 of his 12 seasons calling plays are top 3 in pass percents, going 30% or so target shares to running backs, going absolutely nuts. But like it just, I don't know. What if it's not his guy? We know Payton's stubborn about those things. What if he doesn't ever fully get healthy? This was an elite prospect. I love Javonte coming in. I thought he was great as a rookie. So yeah, I mean, 16 in touches from running backs last year. It could go. I like Cooks here, by the way. It's a nice.
I already knew who you were gonna say.
Yeah, it gives us week 17 with AJ Brown. Sign me up. I'm in. We do only have 3 running backs. I'm not saying we have to force it, but I'd like to see what else is there at the other positions too, for when it comes back to us. No, Tua does nothing for us. I mean, maybe Schultz, a little Stroud correlation. How many tight ends? We only have one.
We do not need any more tight ends. We've got Ingram and Njoku.
Oh, yeah. We don't need him. Damn. I guess that's one of the downfalls of a random Njoku for no reason.
Yeah.
We don't need a tight end here. Could have given us something more with Stroud. I'm not into Gabe Davis. God, no reason to pick Goff. We don't have any correlation there. Maybe this is where we go Charbonnet, a contingent upside running back that you were talking about liking.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of who else is there.
Yeah. You can't really do a ton of Herbert stuff late, like unless you want to be grabbing Will Dissly for whatever reason.
Nah.
I wouldn't mind Pearsall, Lloyd, or
I like Jalen Polk in this range too.
Polk's already off the board.
Polk's already off the board. Damn.
Yeah.
Fine.
He's starting to come
I like
up.
Marshawn Lloyd too.
Let's go. I like Lloyd.
Yeah, okay. Unless you really want Charbonnet, because we've been going a lot of Lloyd. So I'm okay with either Lloyd or Charb. Your choice.
I'm gonna go Lloyd.
I like Lloyd myself, but
I like Lloyd.
Yeah, I do too. I really feel good about Lloyd.
Gonna be a pretty good offense. Gotta think he plays a role in some capacity.
Oh yeah.
Just given everything that we've heard from Matt LaFleur about trying to operate this as a committee. And there we have it. Jaleel McLaughlin goes off the board at 137.
Jeez, yeah, like 30 picks within him and Javonte is pretty absurd.
That is where it is not worth it to be taking stabs on Jaleel McLaughlin. Like,
no.
I understand the steam, like why, like, because he is like was a target earner last year, and I mean, like, it was kind of not necessarily a target earner just because, like, when he was coming onto the field, like, it was designed to get him touches, so he was on the field a lot when he was he was on the field a lot in an effort to get him the ball. But looking at his prices now, he started out around pick 170. He dipped into the 180s, and now he's steaming up into the 150s, and we just saw him go in the 130s. So the argument for being interested in Jaleel McLaughlin is getting less and less interesting as he comes up. But yeah, that's too much for me.
As somebody who did that's way too much. I totally agree. And as somebody who was once in on Javonte, loved him in Dynasty. I'm a big. He was elite coming into the league, tackle breaker. His style of run was great. And Chase bringing up some good point, Dane over here. If he regains his pre-injury form, it's going to be hard for even Payton to bench him. And there's really not, like, as congested as it is. If Estime's good, it could be ugly, and we've seen that kind of committee before. But it could just be the Javonte show in a backfield that has historically been phenomenal for running backs in the Sean Payton offense. So, looking back, maybe instead of Njoku, we go Javonte. Then we would have had the option to go Dalton Schultz. And if Dalton Schultz makes it back to us, I know that's way too many tight ends. I don't know that we need 3 tight ends, but we've already put good capital in it. But it is stacking up Stroud, and it's tough to get weapons for him. We only have Dell here. I wouldn't be opposed to that. You're not going to see a lot of 3 tight end builds with like that much capital at it, and we would get some spikes out of him for sure. So something to consider if Schultz makes it all the way back to us.
What about round 20 Noah Brown?
Last year. I don't know about that. With Diggs down there. Yeah. I'm not sure. So maybe Javonte, somebody I need to start looking at, maybe bumping a little more exposure to it. Someone who once believed in the guy, who does believe in a Peyton back, using his backs to a ton of value. But I like Estime too. I like this Blake Watson kid they keep hyping up. I don't know. It's just, we'll see how it all pans out.
I will not buy into Blake Watson until there is a concrete report that he is going to play a role.
We'll see. You never know. You never know. I won't either, but he's one of the most intriguing UDFAs that was out there. I'm not using that as a reason to not draft Javonte. It's just more so what if Javonte just never regains his pre-injury stuff. Okay, we just yay. We got a guy that had 3 running back 1 weeks last year. Didn't really do much for your team otherwise. I don't know. It would have been the right spot to take that type of bounce back, though. Like, he was going there in drafts last year despite the injury, so why not take him a year removed? And what if he is healthy? But have you seen any reports that like Javonte looks 10,000 times more explosive yet? Like, I'm looking for that. Like, I'd like to see that. But
the only report that's coming out is like the completely like fictitious clickbait one that he's on the roster bubble. And there goes Tyrone Tracy in round 13. So someone must have queued up a bunch of – no, I think he made that pick. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's whatever.
All right. Want to pick up the queue, though, so we can see who we got?
Yeah. I don't have anyone queued up.
I like Jalen Wright or Vidal. I like either of those rookie running backs quite a lot.
I'll go Wright.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Honestly,
not.
I'd consider Vidal on the way back too.
I
What
would
do we have
also
for
go.
running backs right now?
We're getting pretty good.
We're at
We've
we're
got
at 5 now, right?
yeah, we've got 5.
So yeah, if
We're
Vidal fell to us, again, and especially with the Taylor anchor, like we don't need one, but we could just take Vidal and then not take any more running backs the rest of the draft.
I'm starting to think about who we need to be building out stacks with. We've got Levis there, perhaps. We could grab Adam Thielen here and just do a bunch of late stuff with the
No,
Panthers.
no, I like Will Levis. We talked about Will Levis from the jump. We could do Boyd and later. We can figure
All
that
right.
out. But we're not. We'll get Will Levis on the next go around. We're fine.
Yeah, we don't need him
Who
here.
are our receivers though? Because we probably do need a receiver investment soon.
No, yeah, we're gonna need a receiver. We don't have anyone particularly stackable. We've got Brown, Tank Dell, Pickens, Ridley, and Cooks. So I think this pick's
Ridley
gonna
we're
have
looking
to be
stack with.
receiver.
We could take a stab at like Fields or Russ, but we don't need it. I think we could look for the Levis next round.
I think this pick's got to be receiver here.
All right, yeah. Let's check out what we got. Unless I'm into Vidal here. I'd be okay with it, but
I'm out. Just roster build.
look at these shit bums though. Wandale, Malachi. Just get Vidal and then we'll figure it out. These guys aren't going to be any better than him. I've gone. There's a really good podcast on Stealing Bananas about rookie running backs, and they got me sold on Vidal, which has me a little worried about Gus Edwards right now, my like 45% exposure. But I mean, we won't touch running back the rest of the draft. I know we can't. But like Roman Wilson not touching the roster right now is scary to me. Maybe
everything associated with a Arthur Smith passing game is scary to me.
Yeah. So I'm looking at like let's look at receivers now though. I do think we want Levis, and then let's pick out what receivers. We're gonna go Levis and then all receivers for the rest of the draft, right? Like that's probably the plan here.
Yeah.
So maybe queue up Levis, and then let's pick out some receivers we do actually like.
Let's do it.
Because we do want to be disciplined at this point. But I'm in on Vidal. I'm in on a Chargers running back in every draft. All right. So
Stabs,
I like Michael Wilson. I like Marvin Mims or Troy Franklin. Like, I don't mind taking a stab at either of those Broncos guys. Franklin, you start Wandale. You really like Wandale?
It's just like receptions. Like that's really it. Like
what if they move Neighbors into the slot a bit more though, right? Like the other guys, if you're looking at Giants receivers, okay, maybe Hyatt breaks a big one, maybe Slayton does. Like Wandale, you're going to get receptions until like what if Neighbors becomes more of the slot guy? By the way, guys, we're going to queue up some receivers. I haven't called for it like in a long, long time. We normally hit 200 people. I know this is a weird one where we didn't have a topic. We didn't, I'm at a different spot without my equipment and whatnot. But if you do mind hitting that thumbs up button, it would help us get to more people. I doubt we'll hit that 200 plus that we typically get to that you guys have been so kind in helping us get to. But any thumbs up are so helpful. Likes, shares, retweets, all that good stuff to keep helping the site grow. RotoStreetJournal.com is where you can find the rankings, the written content, all that good stuff. But yeah, so I saw you start Bo Nix. We could potentially do a backdoor thing.
It's we have to. It's mission abort. Levis is off the board, like 10 picks ahead of ADP.
Damn, that sucks. I mean,
so
it makes no sense to draft an unstacked Stafford. That's probably why he fell to us. But if Stafford falls to us, it's just like our QB2 is 30 picks below ADP. Like Demarcus Robinson the next round, boom. Like Stafford, Demarcus.
Where's Robinson's ADP at?
There he is, right there. 180. I could see.
I'll do that. I would do that. Grab Stafford and then try and push Robinson.
I think that would be the play if he makes it to us.
That's not super awesome, but we'll see.
No, it's not great. I'm looking at what other backdoors we could potentially get at. So what are some other QBs? I saw Baker was still there, right?
You can't really backdoor him with other than McMillan.
Oh, he's gone. Yeah. Anyways, you could maybe backdoor Carr, although no, not really anymore. Like Shaheed's already gone.
Shaheed's long gone.
Drake May with Baker potentially.
Drake May with Baker, who?
Javon Baker.
oh yeah. For some reason, my mind immediately went to Baker Mayfield. I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, what a great combo. Wandale, Daniel Jones, and Slayton. Like there's a back door you could potentially pull off there. I'm most into the Stafford DeMarcus if that pans out.
Yeah, I'm willing to try and push Stafford or grab Stafford and try and push Robinson around, and that sucks. But a skinny stack Stafford isn't great just because of how concentrated this offense is going to be. But I
Colby
mean,
Parkinson late.
hey, you never know. I mean, we don't really need another tight end, but we'll see. Someone was pushing Parkinson propaganda on Twitter the other day. Yeah, and it's you can make yourself believe it.
I guess so with Wandale, or at least a Giants receiver, we do get the Week 17 correlation as well. So I'm not against a Wandale or looking into like Hyatt or Slayton late either. Maybe not next year. I'd rather probably go DeMarcus now and stack
Week
up
17
Stafford.
correlation with who? Not Stroud or Stafford.
With Taylor, Jonathan Taylor.
I thought you meant in terms of our quarterbacks.
No. Yeah, so we could do that potentially. I like Wandale. I mean, I think we do bump up Robinson probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab Robinson here if he's there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the play. And so at the end of the day, okay, we let's say Robinson goes. Does it make sense to have an unstacked Stafford? Probably not. But
it makes
you
zero
also
sense.
Yes, but then the argument of like gaining closing line ADP value, we got him 26 picks below ADP. So like, yes, a stacking partner is very, very important, but also closing line ADP value has been proven to be like near equal in terms of like correlated success here. And I don't think Stafford's going to be going 177 in most drafts.
Do you think Dan Rose in the stream and just saw us?
He probably has Puka and was like, "Fuck you guys for taking Stafford before I was." I mean, we can go Troy Frank. Let's go Wandale. Actually, let's go Wandale, or Javon Baker. I'd say, or yeah, let's go Wandale because we have that Week 17. And I don't have a lot of Wandale.
I think you're going to get a fair, like in terms of consistency of catches. Like you saw him get those manufactured targets last year, just like super like high catch rate, like super easy kind of targets, and you kind of know what you're getting with Wandale, and it's not like they're asking him to make plays on the just because they're just dumping it off to him and asking him to get out in space, but you're getting catches. And there's been some really weird picks in this draft. You see Brendan Rice go round 16.
This is a weird one, huh?
This has been strange. I don't know.
Let's queue up some more receivers we like. So how many are we at now? 6 receivers?
So yeah, we're at 2,662.
So probably rounding it up with at least 2 more receivers. I feel good about our 2 QBs.
I've got Troy Franklin and Bo Nix queued up just in case we want to do 3 quarterback.
I don't think so. That's one of the only other benefits. Like, yeah, against Stafford unstacked, it sucks in that sense, but we don't need like if you were going Drake May, Bo Nix, you kind of want 2 quarterbacks. I think we've saved ourselves a roster spot, and we should take another stab at receiver. I think we're fine at running back. We don't need that. Taylor, Najee are solid, and a bunch of rookie stabs is sexy.
Yeah.
I think the Njoku, Evan Ingram was great. I don't know that we need another tight end. So I think we take a couple stabs at receiver with these last 2 and see if we can kind of hit that next Tank Dell. So, yeah, do you want to pull up the queue? Let's try to pick out some of these. McMillan was one that I liked. I think Franklin making it back to us would be – we could sneak in Parkinson at the end too.
I've got him queued up.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think Zay Jones, now we get a little I know it's not fully Stafford, but it's at least the Week 17.
The game.
Like Zay.
Yeah.
You've been a big Zay guy.
It's with the steam of Michael Wilson, I was certainly overlooking Michael Wilson early in the offseason. I am prepared to come to terms that I was definitely overlooking Michael Wilson early this offseason. I still think Zay Jones is a fine pick in the late rounds of these drafts, just because, I mean, at the end of the day, he was in a wide receiver 2 role at the end of last season, and he was earning pretty solid targets. So Well, we'll see. It's not a crazy thought to think that Zay Jones could be the guy ahead of Michael Wilson, but yeah, I was certainly overlooking Michael Wilson a little too heavily.
Yeah, that's that's fine. I mean, I was too, but it's still Michael Wilson. It's not the end of the world. Like,
No,
it's
it's
not a
not like
guarantee Wilson pans out. I
no,
would be
no.
two up. I don't mind Tolbert. I know without Dak, like why, but again, AJ Brown, Brandon Cooks, Tolbert, like building out the. What if Tolbert does hit? So I like Tolbert a little bit. Is if you keep scrolling down, I'm trying to think of like who else. So yeah, maybe Q Tolbert. You know my thoughts on Chark. I like Chark. You might hate him, but I like Chark. I like Rondale Moore. We're looking at just pure late guys.
We can start being the guy who has 80% Claypool.
Yeah,
let's start catching up to that guy.
Madness. Calvin Austin.
Noah Brown, baby.
Noah Brown. Yeah, seriously. I actually do like Kendrick Bourne late too. I think we go Franklin here. I mean, this is another 20 plus picks of ADP value. As much as he fell in the NFL draft, like what if they said they had a round 2 grade on him? Yeah, what if he is Bonix's guy, the college rapport? Like,
there's also no guarantees of Marvin Mims being ahead of him.
No, and I have a lot of Marvin Mims, I do, but there's definitely no guarantees. Why don't can you show me our receivers real quick? Because it's like, do we really even need an eighth when we're rolling around?
AJ Brown, Tank Dell, Pickens, Ridley, Cooks, Wandale, Franklin. I'd rather go Parkinson.
You really like Parkinson? But with Njoku and Ingram, do we need Parkinson?
No. I just hate the naked Stafford. It's probably a stupid decision.
It's not. I get like Stafford, the exact type of quarterback you would never want to be uncorrelated with, but it's the ADP value. Just lean into the ADP value, be happy about it. And then you can correlate him with Zay Jones here and then feel okay.
My pick is Zay Jones probably out of this bunch.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. It gives you a mini correlation with Stafford, like because of the Week 17 stuff. I get it. Right. But the whole point of Stafford was gaining ADP value, not having to take a third quarterback because we got like a shit bump. That 26 picks on ADP value, I don't need that to be stacked. I get it. Like you're drawing dead normally. If Stafford's the guy you need, it probably meant that Puka and or Kupp, one of the two went bananas. It could have meant Demarcus Robinson. It's too bad we didn't get him. It could have meant Colby Parkinson, I guess. But that would have been stunning. I don't know. I'm fine with it. Like once Levis was gone, what other quarterbacks have gone since we took Stafford? Like Drake May and Bryce Young. That's it. Yeah.
we could have done a Bo Nix type of deal real late. We've got 2 guys on the list now. If they do well in Week 17, it's going to come back and bite us in the ass. It's Khalif Raymond and Colby Parkinson are on the list right now. Not grabbing them in round 18. For the sake of correlation. If either of them have a touchdown in Week 17, I'll be betting on both of them anytime touchdown score Week 17.
Definitely parlay those two together.
Yeah. Colby Parkinson and Khalif Raymond, they're going to go off Week 18 because we refuse to correlate.
What is crazy too, and maybe I should have thought of it a little more with Parkinson. It's like we've seen, like for Sean McVay, we saw a run where like
Higbee's,
it was going for like bananas points.
Higbee's has really good stretches over the course of his career.
Yeah. So me and Thaddeus are finally aligned on one. Chark. I love Chark. I am so in on Chark in the last round.
You're never going to get me to come around on it, man.
I don't know what else you need to see. The dude had a 30-point day with Bryce Young, and Bryce Young was god-awful. What else do you need? Yeah, it was Justin Herbert in a very ambiguous as this receiving room, as Thaddeus points out. Like, he's going to be that field stretcher for them. Herbert can absolutely rope it. Like Jalen Guyton was having multiple touchdown games throughout his time with Herbert. Chark is – why do you hate Chark so much? What is not good about Chark? Why do you think Chark's so bad?
I think it is just my – I am probably way too biased to the open score metric, and he is quite – I think he's second to last in open score. So, I mean, I just like, I've never liked what I've seen from him on the field. Like, it's just, I don't know.
You must not have been playing fantasy back in 2019. Maybe I'm clinging to the past a little too much, but man, he had an absurd year, 1,000 yards, 8
I
touchdowns,
remember.
73 catches. Like,
Not
he was a
playing
beast.
fantasy in 2019. I was playing fantasy when I was like 9 years old. I mean, I
So you
remember
know
it.
what Shark can do.
It's I don't know.
He's
Maybe I need to start grabbing him on Herbert teams. I honestly just don't have enough Herbert teams because I it's being I don't know. I don't get a ton of lad. Um so and it's hard for me to take unstacked Herbert and I don't know. I should have more Herbert and then in turn would probably get to or convince myself of Chark easier in these in that last round if I have Herbert. So it's probably just also a symptom of me just not having enough Herbert.
I think what's happening to me is I'm getting a lot of Jalen Polk, and then I get a lot of backdoor Drake May,
Yeah. Okay.
Baker, Javon Baker, and then I'm like, oh, I'll
And
bring it back with Chark here at the end
yeah,
because
yeah.
170-yard bomb from Chark against the Pats, and suddenly Drake May's getting pushed. So a lot. I've ended up on a lot of Chark because I have a lot of Gus Edwards, obviously, and then I
Yeah.
end up with a lot of Patriots to balance out my Gus Edwards, and then I end up with Chark to play it off. But I don't know. I just see Chark as a guy like he's had huge games. I'm going to pull it up here because we're going a deep dive on Chark. So he had 27.8 in week 16 last year, 21.4 in week 15 the year before. So he's been a guy that like just kind of has like 1 to 2 splashes that, it's not huge, but he's got an 18, a 15, a 4. So like 27% of his games have been top 20 in the last 2 years. That's not like great, but it's round 18. I mean,
Yeah,
it's okay. And now he's with Herbert and could be the number 2 or 3. Like, yeah, it'll probably be McConkey, but like, I don't know. I think he's in a really good setup. Plus, we've seen him be an absolute bona fide alpha. Is going to be that? No, I'm not trying to push a narrative of Chark being returning to an alpha here, but I'm just seeing a guy that's had plenty of spikes across the last 2-3 seasons that now is in the spot to definitely do some spike action.
Oh yeah, I mean like his player archetype is just like one that just in terms of like the targets that he gets is one that can produce spike weeks. So I mean,
yeah.
You can make the argument.
I know you made the joke about the dude that has 80% Claypool and deservedly so. But I haven't clicked the name. And all the reports are he's the best Bills receiver. And like, yeah, I don't buy that for a second.
I don't buy it for a second either. I think it's more likely that he doesn't make the roster than he plays a fantasy relevant role.
Yeah,
maybe he makes the roster,
okay.
but
So let's say like I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. I agree with you, by the way. I understand. I don't think Claypool might not even make the roster. I totally understand that. That being said, like when he was a rookie a long time ago, now 2020, so it's been now this will be 4 years removed from that season. But that season was pretty bananas. Like if you remember, I know we're talking about like 2019 Chark. Now we're tossing some throwbacks with 2020 Claypool. Had a 42-point day. Had multiple 20-point days.
What was it like? He used like 12 touchdowns that season.
I don't know if he had 12. Let me check the career details there. He was the wide receiver 23 and the wide receiver 38 in a bad year the next year, and he's been nothing since. I mean, people hate him, and deservedly so, because like he seems like a bad teammate.
It was 9 touchdowns.
Everybody else. I had 9 touchdowns that year. 859, 62, 859, and 9. But I mean, it's not an impressive Bills roam either. So like, if the guy did have some juice, and let's say he just is continually making plays. Now, reminder: this time of last year, they were hyping up. What was the dude's name? The kick returner guy. I don't even know. He's not on a team anymore. He came from the Saints. I don't know. I drafted him in a couple of best ball teams. So like, oh, Bills guy's getting hyped. Mac Hollins is now there too. He's getting hyped as well.
Oh, Deontay Hardy.
Yes, Deontay Hardy. He was one. And there was one other guy too. A guy came over from the 49ers, a big body. Trent Sherfield was like the number 1 receiver, and he didn't catch a ball all year. So like, I'm not going to buy in completely, but this is a little different in the sense that like it is a guy we see have 9 touchdown season under his belt. And do I like Shakira? There's some stuff about open score I like. There's some stuff that like is interesting, but if suddenly Claypool was just like harder to keep off the field than Shakir, a 15, 20% chance it happens. But if that happens, and now he's on the field a lot with Josh Allen has, as Thaddeus says, he's 25. He'll be 26. This is only the second good quarterback he's been with. I mean, again, it's thin. I don't love it, but like he is a guy that like if he in training camp and then first preseason game catches like a 50-yard bomb, is suddenly probably going like kind of like what Tank Dell did last year, where he's like now going around 14, 15, and people actually think he's going to make some noise with the Bills. So I don't know. I know we laughed at it when we went over it, but like I've drafted him twice, and it was either with that Garrett Wilson team or Josh Allen, of course. If I have Josh Allen, I don't have much stacking there.
I have him.
Will you click him at all, or no? You just like
I have him once on DraftKings with Josh Allen in round 20.
Okay,
I saw something on Twitter the other day, and it was like a meme, but it was true. Like it was Chase Claypool 6'4" and runs a 4.3 40. His only defect is that he's horrible at football. It's like I'm like, you're not wrong. Like it's pretty true.
He's been pretty bad. Yeah, he has been bad. Because you got to think too, like one of the things that I consider a little damning is like McDaniels went and traded for him. It's like, the master of speed, the master of yak. If somebody could tap into him, Waddle's hurt, and then he still couldn't even get on the field for McDaniels. It's like
he prefers short men. He likes the little guys. He's not a fan of the big boys. So
no, that's why I was surprised they traded for him. The worst trade of all time, the Bears for pick 33.
He was valued at a second round pick.
Yeah, pick 33.
So bad.
Jeez. I guess we can never fault them for their trades after what they did to the Panthers.
How many catches did he have as a Bear?
I don't know if he had any.
He had 14 catches as a Bear.
Oh,
pretty awesome.
That's pretty bad. They're pick 33. Well worth it. But they heisted the Panthers. They dug themselves out of that hole. But
that's enough Chase Claypool talk for the day. Do you wanna take a quick look at this team and then get out of here?
Yeah, sure. So AJ Brown, Taylor, one of those detours that might make the difference. Like Taylor hasn't been great for 2 to 3 seasons, but just 2 years ago he was the clear-cut number 1 pick, like 1,800 yards, 20 touchdowns. And I love the Shane Steichen team. Like I know we made the case against Taylor a couple times because of Anthony Richardson maybe vulturing. And there's that world where like Flacco is coming in for the playoffs because Anthony Richardson's hurt, and suddenly like Taylor's getting dump offs, he's getting all the touchdowns, and even without it, like I just like Shane Steichen. So we saw Zach Moss be the running back for, even with Richardson being a quote unquote vulture. This is a good run game, a fast paced offense, and they have the easiest playoff schedule among running backs. So I don't want to be without Taylor. So I like that we got some exposure here. I have seen him. I saw him wrap around in round 3 the other day.
Who?
He went pick 29. I was like, what the hell is happening?
Who did? Right Taylor?
Now? Yeah, Taylor did.
That's crazy. I was going to say, like, I might need to just start taking more Taylor at ADB because I don't see him slide very often at all. So I just, like, I don't want to have 0 Taylor, but, like, I'm fine just having a little bit of Barkley and grabbing him when he slides. So, like, in this draft, he went at 22. I'll grab him at, like, 22, like, near the or, like, at the turn. Like, I'll do that pretty easily. But I, like, Taylor, I don't really see him slide that often. So I might just need to – Barkley, I'm more comfortable to, like, have a harder fade on, just, like, not have much of him at all. But Taylor, I'm uncomfortable in that, like, 15 to 16 range. I'm, like, not super comfortable, but like I said, like, I might just need to bite the bullet and take him here and there because I don't want to have a huge fade on Taylor. Like, I'm comfortable with Barkley, and it seems like people are not willing to budge and let him fall down the draft board.
No, yeah, he's fallen only a couple times, and I thought it was nuts when he did. I mean, even last year, Taylor, 40% of his games, he was a top 12 running back, and it wasn't even, like, the best year for him. But, yeah, 21, 17, 21, 27. Yeah, like, he ended up having a pretty solid year despite being hurt, despite all the turmoil in the offseason, despite sharing carries with Zach Moss for a lot of those games. Taylor still had a solid season. So I am very excited to see what he does this year. So that is a guy in round 2 I am going to try to bump, especially when it gets to, like, I know me and you both like Adams at round 2, but I've taken him a lot. I do like Nico Collins a lot, but this was the last draft we talked about getting kind of boxed out at running back and playing too much into the wide receiver firepower. This is one way to do it. You take the round 2 detour, get yourself an Achane, get yourself a Taylor, a running back that, like, if you didn't have him in week 17 and Taylor has 40 points, like, it could definitely happen. And so, yeah, I like that. Tank Dell, Pickens, Ridley to account for the detour. We got 4 picks and through our first 5 rounds even at wide receiver. I like that. I think that's a great play. Anything you would have done differently in those first, and then Stroud, just looking at the first 6 picks, I see nothing I would have done differently. I think that looks solid to me.
I would have liked for Anthony Richardson to be there. I'm not taking him at 40 though, and I'll just let someone take him unstacked. I mean, like, you don't need to stack Anthony Richardson, but yeah, I would have loved.
Crazy that guy took Richardson. He had Andrews, and he took Richardson ahead of Lamar.
Let's look at this guy's roster because he does not go receiver. Wide receiver 3, Curtis Samuel. That is not. That's a pretty easy way to let yourself lose.
Not solid at all.
That is a scary thing to look at if you're looking at your roster at the end of this thing.
And yeah, here while we're reviewing the team, here for the memes or anybody else, if you got dynasty questions, redraft, keeper, anything, toss them in there. We'll be happy to answer them after we do our team review. So for sure.
So moving into the middle rounds, I like grabbing Stroud at 64. That's kind of like near his ADP now after it was like
right. It was
in
like
the
48.
40, yeah, it was like at the 3-4 turn, like early round 4 or late round. He was like late round 4, like he was up there with Mahomes.
Yeah.
He was not super appealing at that price, but now you're getting them really late, and it allows you to stack them with basically whoever. Like it's pretty nice, and yeah, so I'm a fan of that pick. And then grabbing one of those.
I love Tank Dell too. Is it's becoming like whoever drafted Tank Dell is getting Stroud, because typically that's what it happens. Is round 6. He was before going to the Nico drafter at the top of round 2. Nico guy was at the top of round 2, like there. Diggs in the middle of round 3, and so he was very rare Stroud would make it past those guys. But now that he's getting past those guys, and then he comes back around in round 6, you can typically get him there with Tank. Especially, I think it's great.
Especially if you decide to pull the trigger on Nico at like 16 or 17, and then you can do Dell in the 3rd. You can do these. You can basically just play around with Stroud's ADP, and like we've talked about, like trying pushing him, because if you grab Nico and Dell, you're basically just daring the guy who has Diggs to take him, and you can play that game however you want, really. Like, so, and I think you're still okay grabbing Nico and Tank and not having Stroud. Like, if you want to let the guy take Stroud who has Diggs, like, I feel like your roster is still going to shake out okay without Stroud there. But moving into the middle rounds, I thought this was a fine way to go about it. I maybe would have gone Spears ahead of Singletary, because I feel like you're kind of getting the same thing out of Najee and Singletary, just like it's a volume-based bet, but Spears offers more as a receiver and more of like the unknown of the offense as well.
And the spike week too, yeah. Whereas like we already had Taylor, we're kind of banking on Taylor being our lineup like 12 out of 16 weeks with that price tag, and then Najee's already kind of that, like you said, the volume guy. I see that, and then there's a chance Singletary even makes it back to us, but we didn't need a Singletary bet there. We needed like the spike week upside of a Tajay Spear, who we saw last year in a less ideal situation. Spike is sharing the backfield with Henry, so yeah, I can totally see that. I think that's a fair call for sure.
Moving down, this is where I think we took the appropriate high ceiling stabs with rookie running backs to pair with the Najee and the Taylor picks. So I'm fine with these.
What about Njoku too? I think you breezed past him real quick. Like, we had Ingram. We already had a good tight end. We didn't need Njoku. And you were bringing up Javonte there. That's one that's kind of I've been looking at, like, man, like if we're playing the 2v2 game, okay, it'd be Schultz and Javonte, or Njoku and Lloyd. I mean, I kind of like Njoku Lloyd there. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know it's less correlated for our team, but that's what I'm thinking. Is like where we took Lloyd, we probably would have gone Schultz and paired him up, which would have been more stacking, which would have been nice.
Yeah.
Javonte Schultz, Njoku Lloyd. I don't know. What do you think? That's an interesting 2v2.
You also can make the argument that we wouldn't have even been able, at least like I know, like for this is just one specific draft. And like, I think Njoku, Lloyd, but you also like, you don't get Njoku at 112 very often. And in this specific draft, we didn't have Schultz available to us. I'm not taking him at 136, and he wasn't there at 153. Yeah, I think the pick is Njoku Lloyd there, but also this draft provided a unique set of circumstances. I think the only way this draft didn't shake out super well is in terms of our ability to pull off some stacks. I think we probably could have earlier realized that things were getting ugly and decided to set ourselves up for a late stack, like perhaps. And once again, he wasn't available to us. Jalen Polk went really early, so like maybe grabbing a Polk or a Demario Douglas and setting ourselves up for something with the Patriots late, or doing something with the Broncos. I think that was really our only flaw, was going Vidal over Douglas, perhaps, to not set ourselves up for Drake May down the line.
Douglas, I mean, come on though. That most explosive player in Patriots camp. Okay, it's 5'8". Yeah, it's not. It's like Drew McLaughlin too. Like, yeah, they're gonna look good in shorts. It's the short, speedy guys' time of the year.
But it's also
Demario Douglas over Vidal. And I think that's. And we see your dynasty question here from the memes. I love it. It's a great one. I think that kind of comes to lobby CDQs. Is like Vidal's was definitely a luxury pick. We did not need to go 6 running backs, because I agree with you with Taylor. I typically would have probably gone 5 running backs, and certainly where we had Najee, Singletary, and then a couple good rookie stabs already in Wright and Lloyd, like 2 of my favorites. It was definitely a luxury pick with Vidal. But I guess my thinking is, like, when you look at those receivers, okay, and this, if you're still with us, Lobby, I'd love, and this also goes out to you, Mo. It's like, I would have totally agreed. I think typically in this build, 5 running backs makes more sense with that early capital at the running back position. But then I'm also looking, okay, with our where would we have put that extra roster spot? We had Stroud and Stafford. I don't think we need a third quarterback there. No. We had.
If you take Douglas, you don't go Stafford.
What's that?
If you take Douglas, you don't go Stafford. You go May.
Probably. I'm telling you this. I know it's unstacked. If Stafford's there at 170 or beyond in any draft, and I need a QB2, I don't care that it's unstacked. I'm talking.
Yeah, that's fair.
The last draft, we ended up with Stafford. Me and you were both talking about how 45 touchdowns for this guy is not even that crazy. If Kupp is fully healthy, if Puka's what he was again, like, it was just 2 years ago, he threw 40 touchdowns, and they were, again, when everybody was healthy last year, highest EPA, second in points per game. Like, you're going to, just for the sake of the stack. Like, I guess that's where maybe it's a fault in my game, or maybe it probably is, because I think that is clearly like how important stacking is. I understand that. But man, like, if I think that Stafford has a legitimate path to 40 touchdowns, even if he's unstacked, like, points are freaking points. And I guess I know I get the week 17 thing. We're banking on CJ Stroud and Tank Dell going for 40 combined in week 17. Like, I'm not passing up on a 26 picks of ADP value. We had the shot at stacking Robinson. I know we went the pick, 10 pounds past ADP, probably because the guy wanted to screw us over because we screwed him over from his Puka stack. But, like, I'm not passing up Stafford 26 picks past ADP just for the sake of a stack. Am I that bad at best ball because of that? Maybe. I don't know. But, like, it just seems such a good value on a quarterback that I think is, like, a genuine difference maker. I'm not – if we had Douglas there instead of Vidal, I'm not, like, pushing Stafford even further down just for the sake of getting Drake May later. I don't know. Is that a huge – maybe it's a huge oversight. Maybe I need to look more into it. But, like –
there's really no way to really argue one way or the other, because there's, like with these specific situations, there's no way to, like, factually determine what thing is right. I mean, like, you mentioned it, even, like, you understand the value of stacking your quarterbacks and building out your roster correctly in that way. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I agree that points are points, and Matthew Stafford, in probably 95% of outcomes, he scores more fantasy points than Drake May this season. Maybe even a higher rate than that. But we're both smart enough to understand the value of properly constructing these rosters and having stacked quarterbacks. So
I think I was banking on Robinson making to us.
There's no way to say who's right and who's wrong. And I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, we definitely did not construct this roster optimally in terms of how we set up our stacking partners.
These are not the best practices in terms of, like, again, this is a fair call. The 6 running backs with Taylor, the non-stacked quarterback with Stafford. Like, this is not the draft to look at and be like, this is a masterclass on the best practices of best balling by any means. And I think, so he points out too, Schultz at the Lloyd pick, but I guess I would come back with the fact that we already had Ingram and Njoku spending 2 top 10 round picks at tight end. Like, we even brought up, like, going Schultz instead of Lloyd, or Schultz almost made it back to us where we took Wright. But, like, would you, if you'd already invested that much capital at tight end, are you if Schultz is getting to our lineup too much when we've already put 2 top 10 picks into it, we're probably in more trouble than the fact that we're stacked. Like, we're unstacked right now. So I don't know. Again, Schultz had made it to where we took Wright, definitely. Like, would have gone Schultz there for a 3 tight end build, but I guess I didn't really expect Wright to also make it back to us there, Vidal to also make it back. So maybe we could have gone Schultz instead of Lloyd, but I don't know. What do you think, Lobby, in that sense too? Like, and so, yeah, I guess it comes back to this idea too of, like, 6 running backs with Taylor. And yeah, that's what we came back to as well. Like, probably pass on Njoku and hold for Schultz. Yeah, we talked about that too. Gone Javonte instead. Then you're not going Lloyd, you're going Schultz. That was like a 2v2 game we were playing earlier, which probably makes sense there, for sure. I want to keep reviewing it. Let's get this one we pushed here for the memes. He's been patient with us, and then we'll finalize our review and get back to what we did wrong with this team. But I like it. But here we go. Three full wide receivers, PPR dynasty starters are Tyreek, Amon-Ra, Wilson. Solid stable right there. 4th receiver is Watson and Pop. Okay, so yeah, not the best. I would agree with you. You probably want a wide receiver 4. 25 first and Watson too much for one of – oh, man, that's a tough one. It comes down to how much you believe in Watson, how much you believe in the hamstring is an issue that he's finally worked out. Because you talk about this next – like a year earlier – after Watson's finished to his rookie year, you would probably be saying, like, Watson's almost in that tier of Smiths and Ayuks and Higgins, and one bad down injury-ridden year, and now he's suddenly out of that. Oh, yeah, probably, because it's consistently dealing with it. It comes down to how much you believe in Watson, and I don't know. I'm interested to know your thoughts. What do you think of Watson? Because I lean that this is a little too much, even just like the 25 first, and then what if Watson bounces back? Because one question mark with Watson is we know Love is actually the real deal. That's actually been checked off now. So now it just comes down to, can Watson himself rebound? Can Watson himself stay healthy? We've seen the glimpses, but one of the big question marks for his dynasty value is, oh, you did that with Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's never going to happen again. Well, Love is the real deal. So if Watson's good, he's going to still be good, like quality with Jordan Love. That's not any more of a question mark. So I personally think this is probably too much. And I'm someone that doesn't even love Watson, at least for these guys of like Smith, Ayuk, Higgins, like number 2Zs in their offenses. Ayuk kind of the one, but still only like 105 targets a year. I probably think it's too much, but you're contending. He adds that context too. Defending champ, teams in year 3. It doesn't seem like if you're defending champ, it doesn't sound like a rebuild. Like, it sounds like you're going for another title. So my gut reaction's a little too much, but it's certainly not unfair, especially if you're just like, I kind of want to get rid of the Watson headache. So I don't know. I lean a little too much, but what do you think about? I know you don't do a ton of dynasty.
I feel like it's not a horrible thing to give up. I mean, it obviously. I don't know. I think I would do that trade. I would give up. I would give up Watson in a first for probably either Ayuk or Higgins. I mean, you've got Ayuk or Higgins probably, like, more likely than not, strolling in to be the number 1 of some offense next year, and a path for Ayuk to be a top option somewhere this year, and either one of them probably like being a high-end option in this year, even if they're not the number 1 option. I mean, like, Ayuk, you can argue, is the number 1 option even with Deebo Samuel there. Higgins obviously not, but I mean, just in terms of down the line, You've got two. I would say probably either Ayuk or Higgins, not probably Smith. But the concerns with Watson are legitimate. I'm starting to buy into the fact that like he was legitimately like his body was not set up to like have hamstrings that could survive seasons.
Could be.
And yeah, I mean like I think it's a fair trade. Like you obviously like would prefer to have a better fourth receiver, even though you are probably more than capable of being carried by those three guys. I mean, that is a pretty filthy group of receivers at your top three. But if you think if you're a contender and you think that that adding one of these guys is going to push you over the edge to win a title, I don't think it's a bad investment. I think it's pretty fair.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, I'm in. The other thing to think through too is like, okay, so do you not have any 2024 picks? Because this is a really good receiver class. Like a Jalen Polk in round 2 or Jermaine Burton in a year or two could be a monster. Never mind the Ricky Pierce sales, like the guys that are going tiers above. So like, do you have no shots on any of those guys? And what does your running back room look like? Because a lot of the early talk I've seen on 2025 is it's a great running back class. And we're talking, again, a year before college football has even started. But, you know, I'm looking at, like, what if you could get a potential top 12 running back and Watson, and then, like, Ayuk goes to the Steelers next year, and, you know, Higgins has more hamstring issues, and now he's going, like, it comes down to exactly what you were saying, though, Mo. If Watson has another year with, like, the hammies and he just truly is not built for the NFL field, you're getting nothing for him after this year. So it is kind of like, do you sell while you can or not? So then he has a little more context here. I've had really good drafts. Najee, Trevor, Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson. Yeah, so, I mean, that is pretty good in terms of Najee into Barkley. So there you go. I mean, you got yourself a squad there. But no 2024s. So, yeah, except 310. So you might be looking more like Jalen Wright or like an upside running back. But maybe Burton falls there to you. I personally think I stay, but I think you made a great argument for why you could go. It's a very, like, that is a very fair deal, which is always tricky. Like, either way, that side works out well. So, lobby, again, we were asking for, like, where could we have gone different instead of 6 running backs? Because I totally agree the structure wasn't optimal. But I didn't leave the draft thinking we needed more receivers, like maybe a 2-5-9 too. I certainly didn't, like, if Schultz is the reason why it's getting dinged, it's like, I think that would have only made sense if we passed Luku and gotten Schultz, like you say here. And that's hindsight. Like, you didn't know, like, Schultz was going to go that far past ADP, and it's Dalton Schultz. Like,
yeah, I'm not.
He's contending with.
I'm not pressed about like Schultz as a player, like missing out on him. I just think, this wasn't our best performance structurally or setting ourselves up for a stacked quarterback. So I agree. I think 6 running backs with a Jonathan Taylor is not something that should be done, and we probably should not have done it here. But I mean, like, 3 of them are upside rookie swings. So, like, I mean, you can make the argument that it's okay with that kind of player. And then you just,
like, that's what I love about it. Like, I think we set up really well in that sense. Is like, we have the Taylor, we have our Singletary Najee. Like, we know we're gonna get pretty, like, good early season production, and ideally Taylor's full year, ideally Najee's full year too, and Singletary, maybe even him as well. But, like, it sets us up that we don't need any of these 3 rookies, but we just need one of them late. Like, Mostert goes down and Wright, boom, is the number 2. Achane goes down and maybe Wright even overtakes Mostert. Now he's the number 1 guy, or vice versa. Kimani Vidal, it ends up outplaying Gus all camp, and suddenly he's like a 280 touch guy. Like, he was in college. I mean, like, his missed forced tackles. The 6 build is not typical with a Taylor, but when you look at the 3 after the nice volume guys, I think that's when I'm okay with the 3 running backs. Is like, all 3 of those guys are just home run cuts. And man, if one of them connects, and especially if one of them connects at the right time of the year, like, I'm more at peace with the 6 running backs than I am having a non-stacked, like, QB, which looks weird with Stafford, but I'm just going to keep planning on that. It sounded like Mims and Stroud had the same bye week, so that would not have really. I don't like QBs with the same bye week. I do my best to avoid that.
I just want to point out this. Yeah, I think it's fair to want to be double stacking Stroud, and we were talking about a little bit earlier, just pushing pushing Nico Collins to like 16 or 17 in mid early round 2 and doing that and basically just daring the guy with just Diggs to take him. And I think that's probably the best way to go about this, because I'm also just not really interested in Dalton Schultz. And like, I know it makes sense from just like how you want to set up your roster, but yeah, I'm not super interested in Dalton Schultz. So it's hard to plan these things all the way out, like in terms of like knowing you're going to have like grabbing Collins a couple of picks ahead of ADP in anticipation of building out a Houston stack. But I think that's probably the best way to do it, is to grab Nico in the mid to early second round.
Yeah, I think that would have looked real nice. And I have been doing that more, Nico, bumping him up, getting Stroud in the 6th type of situation. But then what would suck is then like the Diggs guy just decides to take him in round 5. And it's like, well, now it's never a bad thing to have multiple Houston pass catchers, but you're really doing a Stroud early double for the sake of having a Stroud as part of it. I think Schultz, with the hindsight 2020, maybe, no Njoku there. I know we talked about, Javonte there instead, which obviously changes what running backs we end up going with. But this is like the point too. It's like, if I took 6, it would have been 1 or 2 of my last 2 picks. I again agree, yes, in theory, but I don't know if you guys have been seeing like last 2 rounds, there are very bad running backs now. Like, I like Foreman, I do. I like if Irving makes it to the second to last round. I like I like Braylon Allen, but he's starting to creep up to like 3 rounds before the last one. So you needed that Jordan Howard
Jordan
piece. Yeah. Oh yeah, Jamar, the running back there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he doesn't get more love. If he ends up being the clear number 2, I guess I kind of, that's where I see like Samaje Perine ending up someday.
No Samaje Perine. Nixon's got a 3-down skill set. They don't got any business.
They just need a running back 2 behind him. Pierce sucks. Yeah, he might. I think he could be the new guy. I think Pierce is definitely out with the new coaches. Tyreek Hill plus 25 first, Zamir White plus Zamir White, or CeeDee Lamb is his last question here, by the way. That's a hefty tag for Lamb, and honestly, I have a hard time saying it's not worth it. Like, it depends on how much of the value. Like, Tyreek Hill said he wanted to play until 2 more seasons. That was a couple of seasons ago. He's like, I'm gonna play until I'm like 33 and then I'm done. If you hold him as word, like that could be. Oh yeah, sure. That could be soon. So like, I don't know.
He's been talking about retiring. So I don't know.
I might get slammed while I could, right? Like,
I have a hard time dealing it that much. Yeah. I don't know.
Like, he could be nothing after this year if he doesn't pan out. And maybe he does, but
this seems like one of those trades you're just cooking up because you don't know what to do during the off season.
I don't know, and maybe, but like if Hill does retire the next 3 years, and you have CeeDee Lamb who's going to see 200 targets for the next like 5, like at least I don't know. I think this could be a good deal if you have the depth to make that up. Like, it depends on what you're running back to, like how into Zamir White is your lineup going to have to be? Do you have to actually start Zamir White? Because if not, then pull the freaking trigger. Because White could be a nice RB2 this year, but he might suck. Like, he might just be like okay, and then it's like, and what happens with your 25 first? Did you always hit it out of the park? Probably not. So I think I do it, but it might. He's probably laughing at it. It's like, this is just the deal that you're like cracking up. Yeah, like.
Did you know Tyreek Hill has a $56 million cap hit in 2026?
Damn,
that is insane.
That's nuts. And I guess we can end with this this question too, or comment here. And I think this is actually a really interesting point. Is those like time isolated, or whatever the word is, time constrained, like where the puppy is going to end, or the schnauzer, or whatever the hell the dog of the week is coming out. When you know that's going to end, and like people are not time boxed. That's a great way to put it. Time boxed is a great way to describe this. Like, when you know somebody, Dylan Lave is the guy for me in this time box situation, where he's not really getting drafted much, if at all. And when he makes some camp type, like by the end of BBM, people are probably going to have some Dylan Lave if he's making some camp noise. But those time boxed ones, like, nobody had Kyron Williams in those because he wasn't making any steam, except a handful. Maybe some people did. And what a huge edge Whereas like some teams, it's still a great edge to get those guys now on builds that like they're not going to be accessible to. Tank Dell was that for me last year. A huge reason I had such a successful year is I was getting him in round 18 every single time, and so I got these builds where you had round 18 Tank Dell instead of round 14 Tank Dell, and you could kind of those teams were really solid. But the time blocks one still is so much of a bigger edge where you can have these guys that no one else is picking. Jawhar Jordan could definitely be one of those ones. If he gets hyped up and he becomes the number 2 and Pierce gets traded or cut or whatever, and now Jordan is the clear number 2, he's going to go in every BBM draft, but he's not going to go in every puppy. That's for damn sure. So I think that this idea of time blocks is really important to think about, and it does change up the strategy. Do you have any last thoughts on that or anything else, Mo, before we wrap up?
I agree that it is, like, we've been talking about it throughout the off season, like, and since the drafts that we do on these streams are all BBMs, I've been saying right now is the time to take your round 17, 18 pick on guys like Elijah Mitchell and CEH, who seem to have locked in RB2 roles on high end offenses. But I agree, in the smaller competitions that fill up within some of them like 12 hours, and so, like literally the Schnauzer filled up in 12 hours, and these other ones like puppies that fill up in like a week or so. It's definitely a better idea to take the stabs now. I'm not taking those kinds of stabs in the BBM right now, or like tournaments that just in general tournaments that are going to last across the entire summer. I don't think Jawhar Jordan is maybe the poster boy of what you should be like in terms of taking those swings. But yes, the logic of taking those swings where no one's really going to have them because they're not really making the steam yet, it checks out.
It's from the dude that had Kyron last year, so maybe Jawhar Jordan, again, probably not the guy. But this time last year, people have been like, Zach Evans is the actual Rams guy you want behind Cam Akers, who's the clear-cut starter. And like, it's different when like Cam Akers versus Mixon. I think Mixon's the starter. There's no like this guy's going to beat him out. But if Mixon suffered an ACL tear in week 1 and Pierce is gone, and now it's only Jawhar Jordan. Because we had Stroud and Tank, I get
I meant just like in general, like not necessarily for this team, just in general. I don't think Jawhar Jordan is the most intriguing. Like the most intriguing late round running back swing. It makes sense, like on a Stroud team. Yeah, sure. Like it checks out, but it just in general is what I meant. He's just not.
I do like it. Labe's my time box guy right now. That I've been dipping into a lot more often. But Jawhar Jordan makes a lot of sense. Like I get that. You know, if he is the clear number 2, probably isn't. But if he is the clear number 2 for Houston, and he's going to be, but 20 rounds, it's probably more of a DK pick. Like that makes sense too. But it could be interesting. And I think a time box guy could make sense. Awesome guys. Well, Lobby, Thaddeus, here for the memes late there. Everybody here. Good to see Krana pop in real quick. And of course, Dane, all you guys, Liam offering some also great insight and commentary the whole time. Thank you guys so much. We greatly appreciate you guys tuning into 2 drafts here. We'll be back to the regular schedule program. We'll probably hit quarterbacks, our strategy around the quarterback position next week, not taking unstacked Staffords late, things of that nature. Once we're back home and at the regular recording equipment and everything. But RotoStreetJournal.com is where you can find all of my rankings, our content. I just wrote a long tight end position. I think I agree with Mo. We were talking earlier about detours mattering, and I think at tight end, those elite, or maybe it's Ferguson, or maybe it's the right way you punt it, could end up being the key. A lot of good, sharp bus ball podcasts have talked about the key to the year is going to be tight end. And I figured I'll spend a lot of time deep diving into that position. So if you like deep dives, I'll tweet it out today. It's up on the website, RotoStreetJournal.com. That's one thing I wanted to pump. Anything you wanted to pump, Mo, before we head out?
Tomorrow I'll be doing, I don't know when it'll be out, sometime this week. I'll be doing redraft versus best ball, just like the fundamental differences, because I know as more people are starting to get into best ball and they're doing these drafts, just they're coming. For me, it's the reverse. Like I'm gonna have a hard time getting back into a redraft mindset after doing all these best ball drafts. But for most people, it is they're coming from a redraft perspective and trying to understand. Like I'm like talking to my friends about ADPs right now, and like obviously like they're mostly coming from best ball, and they're like, what are you talking about? So like making that transition and like is probably something that people will benefit from, and like trying to get a grip on what the differences are. So that'll be out from me this week on rotostreetjournal.com, and you will be able to find me promoting all my articles and just general thoughts and fantasy musings on Twitter at mo_ffb, MOH_FFB.
Awesome. Guys, check that on out for sure. Give my guy a follow. Check out everything at rotostreetjournal.com. And in a world full of fantasy sheep, be the wolf, guys. Until next time,